Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of the NXTGEN Racing PROTO GT3 Championship Season 2, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today marks round 6 of 10 as we return to the United States of America, to the state of Indiana, for none other than the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Known more colloquially as the Brickyard in reference to the paved surface in 1909, but the circuit was completely resurfaced with a set of bricks. Well, nowadays those bricks are only forming 3 yards on the start-finish line in tribute to the history of the circuit. With the more traditional asphalt, our drivers will be taken to the circuit today for 2 races back-to-back, the sprint and the feature. And what a circuit is going to be, of course, for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, location to one of the largest, if not the largest, motorsport venues in the world. Indeed, a circuit that is absolutely loved for its candour, whether it be on the oval for the Indy 500, alternatively for the road racing circuit, which sees many a series including IMSA and also previously Formula 1, albeit let's exclude the year of 2005 for controversial reasons. But with so many series taken to the circuit around here across the circuit's multiple layouts, it is one not to be forgotten about, and indeed it is going to be a treat for our drivers today as they look to try and continue their way forward in the second half of their championship campaigns. But coming on to our schedule for today, times at Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinated Time at UTC. We can see that in just under 14 minutes time we'll be going into our qualifying session, 25 minutes in duration, looking to set the grid after that, with the session being split into 2 halves for our different car classes, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a brief moment. After that, we'll head straight to the grid for our first race of today, and that'll be the 20-minute sprint, due to kick off at 8:25 this evening, before we take a brief breather and return at approximately 9:05 this evening to go into our second race of the day, and that'll be the 60-minute feature. But as we can see our drivers getting set in the background, all your racing action today is being brought to you live by free media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, if you are a YouTube user, you can go to youtube.com and search for NXTGEN Racing and tune in there. Alternatively, if you are a Facebook user, you can tune in via the official NXTGEN Racing Facebook group. All you need to do is go to facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing. Or lastly, if you're more a Twitch inclined user, you can go to twitch.tv/TX141 and tune in on Twitch. Now, who is TX141? Well, allow me to introduce myself. I'm your host and commentator. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Brits in the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. Now we bring you all your racing action today, and indeed for the remainder of the series. And in what a series we've had so far, and we've still got plenty of racing to go. As we cast our minds to the calendar, we can see we now move into the second half of the championship as of the 1st of March today, with the Indianapolis Sprint and Feature combination. After today, we'll be making our way over to France for the second endurance race round of the season. In round number 7, we'll be seeing our drivers take to the legendary circuit des 24 Hours de Mans, or you all know and love it as Le Mans, as it's known in short. And there our drivers will take on the Goliath of the circuit, consisting of over 30 corners, and who will emerge the victor there we'll have to wait and see. Then in round number 8, we'll be making our way to neighbouring Italy for the Monza Grand Prix circuit, and there in our sprint and feature combo, it's all going to be about straight line speed and being smart with the draft on the 15th of March, before we make our way back to France for our penultimate round, and will be our final sprint and feature combo round on the 22nd of March, and that'll be at the Circuit de Nevers Magny-Cours, recently introduced to iRacing as of the latest season build, and what a highly technical circuit that is, and indeed one where our drivers will need to really be smart in terms of how they navigate the traffic in order to come out on top. And then our season finale will come down on the 29th of March. We'll bring the curtain down at the Daytona Road Course in our final endurance race round. And there, back in the United States of America, we'll be in the state of Florida rather than the state of Indiana, which is where we are today. And previously, of course, if we cast our mind back, we started off all the way back on the 18th of January at the Fuji Speedway, and that was in Japan, where we kicked off our opening sprint and feature combination. And there it was the rivalry of Chris Danes and Benjamin McCluskey in the LMDH Gold class, before we then made our way to the Hockenheim Ring in Germany, the Baden-Württemberg circuit there, a very different tone compared to Japan, where we saw the very tight and twisty arena-based sections of the circuit catch many a driver out in our classes, and it was the battles and the navigation of the traffic which were key. Now on the 1st of February, we made our way to Silverstone for round number 3, and that in the United Kingdom, the heart of British motorsport. We got to see there with a wide open road surface, enabling 3 wide occasions, indeed 4 wide in some circumstances. There was battles of plenty up and down the field, and we also got to see there the rivalries in the LMDH Silver class come alight amongst the teammates in the SB9 Esports team. Then in round number 4, we made our way to Road America for the Wisconsin County circuit there, close to Elkhart Lake in the countryside. On the 8th of February, the narrow road surface of Road America caught many out, but not everybody was caught out there, including the likes of Gaz Williams, who managed to turn around a difficult start to his endurance race and put things back together. And it was Gaz Williams in particular who ran away with things at the very front of the field. And last time, over the last 2 weeks, of course, due to technical issues, we ran at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, a sprint and feature combination for the 15th through to the 22nd of February. And, well, there it was the rise of Russell Fowler in the GT3 Gold class, bringing on home the win in the feature. We've still got plenty of racing to go. And just before we go into today, let's give you a reminder of those championship standings as they currently stand. Now, after 5 rounds, we should point out these standings will now start to take into account the first drop score available to our drivers, and therefore Jamie Dorey in the Hypercar Gold class, or the LMDH Gold class, is leading the way after 5 rounds by 3 points over Gaz Williams. It's practically neck and neck between the two of them, and each set of points now will prove ever more critical, and with Chris Staines on a resurgence of form and picked up all the bonus points last time out, but not quite making a perfect sweep at 135 points. Well, I've already been hearing down the paddock, Daines has been asking all the mathematicians how many points do I need to get round per round in order to level up the score for the season finale. Such is the vigour that Daines is bringing to the table, and I think Williams and Dorey all need to watch out. Meanwhile, Rafael Dos Santos stays in P4 there, only accruing at 11 points last time out in the sprint at Spa, and on 130 points, only 1 clear of Craig Jones. We in turn in a bit of a middling run of form at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps and coming into a bit of contact with Rafael Dos Santos in the sprint, but having a bit of a more straightforward feature race. Jones will be hoping for a simpler one today at Indianapolis, there's no question about it. Meanwhile, Benjamin McCluskey in P6 there, missing out of the feature, but 13 points to the sprint on 118 points. One of the big favourites at the start of the season and looking to refine that form that he had in the opening couple of rounds, with Magna Jonan there in P7 on 110 points, holding behind there versus McCluskey, and 8 points is the delta between the two of them. But let's not count out Jonan and William Foyle there on 15 points, not in attendance last time out. We then come on to the LMDH Silver class, and we can see Paul Williams leading the way at the top for Speed 9 Esports ahead of his 2 teammates. 11 points clear, albeit with difficulties in the feature, with Jochen Siegert taking the win in the aforementioned race. But the difference between the two of them still at 11 points, and Siegert will definitely need to push forward momentum if he wants to try and close the gap. Mark Baker in P3, meanwhile, further 6 points behind and not quite on the pace of his 2 teammates, but holding off Callum Jenkins there, who on 111 points, started to fall a little bit away compared to the top 3, but got plenty of rounds to try and close the gap back up, with David Harney on 39 points there, P5, ahead of Jason Ashfield and Wayne Douglas. Ashfield and Douglas yet to compete in a single round. We then come to the LMP2 class, and we can see it's now Nigel Stock who leads the way on 166 points ahead of Kevin Stringer by 5 points, and the gap between the two really is a demonstration of how close it is in terms of relative pace. Mark Sykes in P3 there on 153 points, having difficulty at Spa, but looking to potentially have a little bit better fortune here today, albeit running with an injury unfortunately, and therefore he will be perhaps a little bit limited in terms of pace compared to his peers. A major arm injury costing him quite a bit of mobility, but we do wish him all the best today, and he is going to be attending today as we're to understand it, so we look forward to seeing him out on circuit. And with Barrie Jarman there in attendance for the first time as of round number 5, well, how he set the tone in terms of speed. A difficult sprint race when instant between himself, Stringer and Stock cost him very dear for the win, but still showing the fastest lap in qualifying in the sprint race and also in the feature race, and bringing home the win in the feature. Jarman may have joined late, but the SCCR Sim Sports driver definitely is setting the tone, and with his teammate Kevin Stringer, the two of them maybe just starting to run away, and with Craig Jones in the MDH Gold class, could they potentially find the perfect combination to lead the team's championship? We'll come on to that very shortly. Meanwhile, David Maggioni there in P5 on 0 points, yet to attend a single round. We then come on to the GT3 classes, starting with the Gold Drivers class, and we see Frederick Stensbo Dorey on 143 points, now 23 clear of Magnus Fluten Bjerkeke. We're not expecting Bjerkeke to attend tonight, unfortunately, so he will lose out on some major points, and this is a prime opportunity for Dorey to try and break away further, with Russell Fowler in P3, now looking to pick up the pieces and move into P2. Of course, Fowler last time out, holding off the field to bring home the win in the feature at Circuit Spa-Francorchamps in an absolutely valiant effort, and equal points to Stefan Vessels, the man who was the fastest of everybody at Spa, but just was not able to bring home the win in the feature after multiple difficulties, and it was not his day. Meanwhile, in the sprint, it was a completely different story with a dominant run of form. 2 points further behind is Gavin Gardner for NXTGEN Racing Pink, and then he's got a 4-point advantage over Jochen Essen on 108 points, with the retirement in the feature race, losing out considerably, and now under threat by Ole Martin Mjork. Ryan G. Walker, meanwhile, 94 points, not able to attend last time out, but we're looking forward to his return in the near future, with Eric Benson and Deegan Fairclough completing the top 10. Liam McNeely and P11, who we didn't see in Belgium, ahead of Adam Delman and John Higgins Jr. They complete the standings in the GT3 Gold class. And as we come to the GT3 Silver class, my apologies there, jumping forward to the bronze, we come back to the silver. We can see Baz Beecham leading the way on 154 points, albeit not the way he wanted it to go in Spa, with no points accrued in the feature race, but bringing home a good podium finish in the sprint race, and therefore he will feel a little bit of pressure after missing out on that opportunity to extend his advantage. But Benny Worth as well having a slip up last time out, and only 8 points in the sprint race going to his tally, 5 points clear of Ollie Wayne, who brought home the win in the feature, and therefore the momentum is with Wayne. Tom Bingham on 132 points, continued to stay close to the top three, with a single point over Stefan Albanese, and there's a sizable 16-point gap to Espresso Rien in P6. But the key thing to take away here is the top five are only separated at the moment by a margin of 23 points in the GT3 Silver class, and any one of these drivers has proven to be the pace setter over the opening 5 rounds. Espresso Rien, meanwhile, will need to keep an eye on Paul Scott, who's now equal on points, and Paul Scott finding good favour last time out, but of course the luck not going his way necessarily in the feature race, but definitely in the sprint race everything was perfect, and can Paul Scott potentially add himself as a 6th contender to that championship crown at this stage. Jack Barker in P8 then 109 points, continued to gradually find his pace in the class. He's well clear of Matthew Addy in P9, and Aaron Raisey completed the top 10, with Mark Arrowsmith and Brandon Hay completing the standings. We then come on to the GT3 Bronze class. And he got Almclov there, now leading by 14 points in what was a great day for the driver last time out, albeit Elwyn Sykes, there was the one who picked up the majority of the points in the feature race, with a dominant run in the feature, didn't quite work out in the sprint, but you can see how Sykes and Almclov now breaking into the top 2, and Jordan Babois falling back to P3 in a day not to remember, or a pair of days perhaps not to remember, but most so at the feature race last time out, but a great result in the sprint race there by comparison, and on 136 points, he's not out of this yet, but definitely will feel as though the momentum he was building has been slowed down. Eric Sveston in P4 on 127 points, free clear of Daniel Stimon, with Jorge Santos in P6 ahead of Sean Scudder and Artie Chatscontinentu, and I can definitely confirm to you right now that Sean Scudder and Chatscontinentu are both back in attendance today, and we're very happy to see the drivers taken to the tarmac. Now as we come onto the Teams Championship, meanwhile, Speed9 Esports lead the way on 401 points, with a growing advantage over NXTGEN Racing Orange. But the hunt for P2 is definitely well on, and with SCCR Simsports now only 2 points behind, and with an advantage of 12 points over NextGen at Racing Purple. Team Slow-Mo leftovers complete the top 5 there, 12 points clear of their master team, Team Slow-Mo, with DRS Esports in P7 ahead of Racing Team Astra, only ahead of Team Slow-Mo Black based on result countback between Racing Team Astra and Slow-Mo Black, and then we have NextGen Racing Pink complete in the top 10. Performance Link Esports falling outside of the top 10 for the first time this season, they're only a point behind, with Rossum's Universal Routes in P12, and it's Made for Racing and Rocket Racing Stars who complete the standings. And as we come for the Teams Championship, let's come to our circuit for today. For it is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course, located in the enclave of Speedway in the city of Indianapolis in the state of Indiana in the United States of America. And as you can see from the circuit map provided us by iRacing.com, thank you to them for their circuit maps and their wonderful simulator, of course. This road course is going to be highly technical, and perhaps what the image does not show you is that whilst this circuit is very flat, it is also very narrow. As our drivers make their way across the start finish line and charge their way down towards turn 1 on the lower portion of the oval, they'll break the way into the sharp right-hander, and into the left-hander will follow, and indeed it may remind you a little bit of the circuit to Barcelona Catalunya, the opening 3 corners. But where it differs, they make their way out of turn number 3. It's going to be a short run before the sharp right-hander at turn number 4. It's all about trail braking into a late apex, and then they'll power their way flat out in all 3 classes through the chicane of turns 5 and 6 before heading down the back straight towards turn number 7. Hard on the anchors into the left-hander, they'll head their way up towards turn number 10 via another medium speed chicane of turns 8 and 9, where it's all about throttle control and weight transfer, and as they break the way into turn number 10, they'll flow out through the rise of 11 and onto the oval for a brief moment before braking sharply into turn number 12. Snapping back into the infield, they'll head into turn number 13, a very late apex corner there, similar to turn number 4, before coming through the fast flat out right hander at turn 14 to complete the lap. But notice here the lack of straights and the high number of corners, it means that the average lap times that we will see across all 3 classes will be very similar. And I can tell you already, between the LMDHs and the LMP2s, we are only seeing an average of 3.5 seconds between their lap times, and the GT3s are only a further 8 seconds back in average. And what that does mean here is that track position is going to be ever key. Now coming on to our race rules, well, just to remind you, in terms of setups, this is a fixed setup series with setups provided ahead of each round. Driver classes wise, the classes were finalised as of round 3. We're not expecting any more changes unless there's an emergency. Qualifying wise, an open qualifying format shall be used to split into 2 two equal halves. The first 12 minutes shall be dedicated to the GT3 class, and the final 12 minutes shall be dedicated to the Proto classes, i.e. the LMDH and the LMP2s. And then we come on to our roles for the races themselves, and we can see the sprint race shall commence via a rolling start in the designated green flag zone, and that is in the run out of the final corner onto the start-finish straight, and the same will apply in the feature race. In the sprint, drivers shall have one fast repair available, and they shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 15 or more instant points. And in the feature race, we can see two fast repairs are available. The grid order shall be set based on a class reverse grid, and this comes from the results of the sprint race, and the drivers who do not finish the sprint shall start from the back of their respective class. A driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 25 more instant points, and drivers are expected in the feature race to make one mandatory pit stop in which fuel must be taken, but changing tyres is entirely optional. Well, as we come back to our live pictures here, we've not got long to go before we do go into the qualifying session, and we see Paul Williams here making his way all the way round. They're coming out of what is turn number 10 and down towards 12 he goes, and already we're getting an indication with Williams having to navigate his way past the racing team Astra BMW M4 GT3, and I do believe that maybe Sean Scudder who's just navigated his way on past. Already the tightness of this circuit and how the classes will trip up over one another as the racing goes on, and particularly in the feature race where we will gradually see the Proto classes come up behind the GT3s and need to find the way on through. But of course that's what is the challenge of multi-class racing, and Kevin Stringer, one of many who know all about it for SCCR Sim Sports. But as we now make our way into the qualifying session, first and foremost, who is going to set the pace in qualifying and gives themselves the opportunity to run their way from pole position in the sprint? Well, as our drivers now start to make their way out of the pit lane, we do look to a good number of our GT3s, because of course the GT3s are the first to go out onto circuit, and they'll rubber in the circuit for our Proto classes to then make their way out. But as we do say hello there to a good number of you in the broadcast chat, whether it be on Facebook, Twitch or YouTube, we say hello firstly on Facebook to Katie Eames there, and glad to hear you're doing quite well, Katie, and we'll thank you for the best wishes there. I'm happy to say, ladies and gentlemen, I am on the road to recovery with regards to the viral bug that I'm suffering from, albeit my throat's still a little bit haphazardous, so I may need to take a breather every so often, but I am gradually getting there, and well, I could not pass up another opportunity to cover live the Next Gen Racing at Proto and GT3 Championship. It always brings a smile to my face, and it's great to see all my drivers out there giving it their best day in, day out. But also we say hello there to RTC Photo, who I do believe in the YouTube chat is in reference to RT Chatsicons or RT Chatsicons Nantu. And are you doing well, RT? Extremely happy to make his racing return, he says there. And also the Facebook chat, Ian Crosby saying, is this track Aston from Live for Speed? Well, that's a good question there, but unfortunately, no, I don't think so. Although I think the joke may be a little bit lost to me, to be honest, although it has been some time since I heard of that reference. But as we do see Dorey making his way through turns 8 and 9 and all the way up towards turn number 10 at the moment, all the drivers are getting themselves set and clocked in here not long before they start to hit their opening flying laps. And well, our first driver to make their way onto the flying lap will be Jack Barker here as he heads down towards turn number 1. Now, what does it take to deliver a good lap at Indianapolis, you may be asking? And well, the thing about this circuit is you really need to feel in control of the car. Speaking to a good number of our drivers in the build-up to today, in the practice session in particular on Tuesday early this week, they were mentioning about the fact it felt as though they were driving on an ice rink. This circuit is very odd in terms of its grip levels. If it's a hot day, well then they'll find there's a lot of grip available to them, but of course they have to worry about tyre degradation. But when it's a relatively cool day, and you can see there on the screen, our track temperature only 22 degrees centigrade, when ambient are 19 degrees, well that means the circuit surface is not going to offer anywhere near as much grip as our drivers would like. And with that in mind, what it does mean is our drivers here will find themselves under braking and also medium to high speed cornering. The car will just want to glide away from them rather than be absolutely strong and stable. And in return, that means that as a driver, you really need to get a feel for how the car's going to behave. And once you've got that feeling in behind your fingertips and also your toes, then you can really start to put those lap times in. But push too hard and the circuit will come back to bite you. Indeed, the car just will not have the grip into a certain corner, whether it be the heavy braking zone here to turn number 12, alternatively in the run through turn number 13, and it will all undo your hard work as you make your way towards the end of a given lap. So as we close off the weather there and bring on back our drivers around here, we can see Barker heading towards the end of his first flying lap and not too far behind Stefan Albanese here as well. And we are expecting the Audi in the GT3 class to be quite strong here, given the reliance on direction change over the course of lap. In fact, Albanese heading through turn number 4. It's taking a little bit of a delay there to go on to his initial out lap. But as he makes his way around, we see there Barker setting the initial pace of 25.508. We are expecting 24s from the fastest of our GT3 drivers, particularly the GT3 Gold class, as we see Fowler there in the Mercedes immediately jumping on up onto a 25.295. And Gaz Williams now 25.132. The times are very quickly coming in, and we see Daniel Stimon here making his way on through turn number 13 into 14 through the long right-hander as he comes all the way round to complete his lap. And as he heads to the timeline, we're already seeing the first 24s. Eric Benson a 24.723, and well, the margins are now being made as Stimon crosses the line there, 26.799. And as he heads down towards turn number 1, where he'll feel those a bit more time out there. Gimbay was time at 25.739, but they still do have 8 minutes to go in the GT3s before they'll be called into the pit lane. They are, of course, permitted to finish their current lap when they are given the call to come in, but our drivers will be wary of the fact that time is gradually running out. They do not have very long, and Sean Scooter, one of many right now, who needs to get a time on the board as he makes his way into turn number 7. We're coming on through and into the right and to left, turns 8 and 9 here. Also, the drivers have to keep in mind, particularly in the prototype classes, the curbs, the apex curbs at this circuit are quite high, and what that can do to a car is cause suspension damage if you hit a curb directly on. And you'll see it here as we make our way down into turn number 12. Look to the apex of the right hand, and you'll see just how high the curb is compared to the road surface. And we can imagine that the GT3, if you hit that, that's going to feel hard enough for the suspension. Hit it in an LMP2 and an LMDH machine, and well, the effect is amplified there. And if our drivers hit those curbs too often, they may find themselves needing to do some repair work in the pit lane in order to get the car back in fighting fit condition. But as Scooter heads to the timeline here, we see him complete his first flying lap. If it will be a valid one as he crosses them through. Target to be at 25.587. In fact, that lap not valid there, so Scooter having to go again. But meanwhile, Benson absolutely flying in the GT3 Gold class. 24.385 as he continues to up the tempo, but meanwhile Gavin Garner heads onto a lap, and we jump aboard here with the Ferrari driver as he takes us around for a lap of Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. He's heading down towards turn number 1 and looking to his left-hand side for his brake marker there, braking at the 500-yard board, coming all the way down from top speed to second gear as he just gradually balances the throttle through turn 2. Regards the apex of 3 and charges up towards 4, points the car towards the outside curbing, brakes down to second gear, balance the throttle, hit the apex and power on through, sweep the car into the middle of the road, flat out from turns 5 and 6, up into 4th gear, and now down the back straight and heading on towards the second half of the lap already. Now getting ready to brake into turn 7, looking to the right hand side for the yardage boards up on the fencing, and as he gets ready to brake on down, braking there about the 375-yard mark as he comes down to second gear, brings the car over to the left and sweeps it into the right hander in turn 8, stays in second, balance the throttle, straight line between the two curves, and then bring the car over to the left before coming down into turn number 10. A very quick sequence of corners there, just a little bit wide on exit as he tries to get the power down, but as he brings the car back under control, that will cost him 2 tenths of the run up towards turn number 12, as up into 5th gear and braking at the 300-yard board as he comes through turn number 12, takes a little bit of apex curve. He can get away with that, but finding a lot of traffic here towards the end of the lap. Gone there, taking a very tight cut of what's the turn 13 curve as he has to back off there. A little bit of misinterpretation between himself and the team slow-mo machine as he came through turn number 14 to complete the lap, and Gardner will have to go again, but that's going to cost him a whole 2 minutes of a lap effective with 1.5 minutes of average lap time, and you have to consider the time he's had to back off. That's 2 minutes worth of his qualified session, which he'll not be getting back. But for Gardner right now, P2 the G3 Gold class at this time, and I think he won't be too worried, but he'll also have on his mind here there may be an opportunity to improve further, because his sector 1 was definitely improving, but the purple driver out of the circuit right now is this man in the Audi R8 LMS. It is Eric Benson, who's absolutely flying in terms of those lap times. He's coming out of the pits at the moment onto an outlap, and therefore as he makes his way on through and up towards turns 8, 9 and 10 very shortly. Well, I wonder what else he's got in store here. Could we perhaps see a high 23? Well, I think he's definitely going to be pushing it to go for a 23, but you never know what's possible as he makes his way up towards the end of this current lap. Just ahead of his Fred extensible Dorey, who's down in P16 the GT3s overall, but has to be considered as well that he's currently in P5 in the GT3 Gold class. So very different fortunes here for the team slow-mo drivers. Meanwhile, in the GT3 Silver class, Gaz Williams continuing to set the timings alight, has also set a 24, a 24.898, the only silver driver to set a time in the 24s as he heads on through turns 2 and up into 3. And we say hello there to Magnus Flutum Yakeka, who is in the YouTube chat and saying Benson is on fire, and I'll 100% agree with that statement. And whilst it's a shame we can't see out of the circuit today, Magnus, we're glad to have you joining us in the YouTube chat as we do see Meacham making his way down the back straight here and up towards turn number 7. Well, I think he'll feel as though he's got quite a bit of space to play with here in terms of on circuit, but also more important in terms of times. And behind him, he does have Jordan Benoit, and if he does feel as though he needs a bit more track space, you can see that he's got a long run, approximately 15 seconds worth of time between Benoit and Dorey in order to just back things off and give himself clear track space. We're not expecting too many of our drivers to want to capitalise on slipstream around here. The dirtier off the back of your like-for-like machinery, so a GT3 in this instance, will definitely be very costly over a given lap, particularly through the winding corners. And Ben Bennyworth here in the Porsche 911 GT3R, I think just falling a little bit back off of Russell Fowler there to give himself a bit of clear air to put over the front of the car as he comes out to the final corner, heads to the timeline. And what's it going to be this time from Bennyworth as he comes down towards turn number 1? Currently P4 in the silver class, 6.5 tenths of a Beecham's time, and he improves by 2 tenths there to 25.382. A nice lap from Bennyworth, moves in P3 in the class, and now only 1.5 tenths off of Albalade's P2 lap. But you can keep in mind that Jack Barker is only 300ths off here, and right now the made for racing driver will definitely be looking to fire back versus Bennyworth in short order. But as he comes up towards the back straight, we do look to our GT3 bronze class here, and we can see the two racing team Astra BMW M4s, the class of Elwin Sykes, who's our main focus, and Sean Scooter, who you'll see elements of as they make their way on around in the camera. Well, the two BMW M4 drivers here enjoying a bit of space on circuit to themselves, and as they head the way down into turn number 12, different fortunes here for the two of them. Scooter P2, only 2 tenths of a Baywell's pole lap. Meanwhile, Sykes 1.4 seconds off of the pole lap down in P6, but he does have 1.4 seconds between himself and Chetsikov as he makes his way onwards towards another lap. With only 2 minutes to go, he's only going to have 2 more laps available to him, including the one he's about to go on to, and we jump on board here with Elwin Sykes. So heading on down towards turn number 1, getting ready for his braking zone here, coming all the way down from 157 miles an hour on the brakes to what will be an apex there of 53 as he clears turn 1, and as he comes into 2, brings the car gradually around before powering out into turn number 3. But notice there a bit of understeer creeping in on his exit out of 1 into 2, and subsequently in the run into turn number 3. And as he comes through turn number 4, BMW definitely looking stable, but at the same time prone to the understeer element as he comes out of turn 6 and powers down towards turn 7. This is where the BMW will be in its element on the straights by comparison with some of its peers, as he gets ready to brake here into the left-hander, looking up then braking at the 400-yard mark, missing the apex slightly down to second gear, creeps it back over to the left-hand side for turns 8 to 9, straight lines between the two, but it's always his hand to whale the car on around here in terms of the fact he does not seem to want to rotate as much as he wants the car to, as he heads out to turn number 10 and up towards 11 he rolls, he makes his way in towards turn number 12, brings the car gently out towards the outside wall, back onto the brakes, the 300-yard ball coming all the way down to second gear, gets it tucked in, heads into turn number 13, and meanwhile per point glass Sean Scooter, fastest in sectors 1 and 3, but not as fast in sector 2. Sykes meanwhile not improving across the course of lap as he heads towards the timeline here, and well, I think for Sykes it may be a very challenging qualifying session to complete his day. Meanwhile for Scooter he improves, he's now only 1.3 tenths of a Baywell's pole lap on a 25.717. Sykes does improve there in the final sector to a 26.484, but still he needs to find a bit more out there, as we're hearing that Santos and Stimon and Chatsikos are all in the pit lane. So in fact Sykes getting it done there to move into P4. I think there's a glitch in our time tower saying all his sectors were down when in fact he was improving, but Sykes now finding that time and moving himself a little bit further up, and he'll be guaranteed P4 in the GT3 bronze class for the simple reason that most of his rivals now are in the pit lane, and he can only potentially improve here on his final lap. But meanwhile we've got more drivers coming around, including Espresso Rian, currently P6 in the GT3 silver class. Can he find his way a little bit closer to the top 5? They're currently almost the second off. No, he cannot. Meanwhile we've got Gavin Gardner coming on around here, and of course turn 14 being a car that's cost Gardner in the past here in qualified, and getting it wrong then, deciding to break off circuit, and well for Gardner, no further improvement. He'll be starting P3 in the GT3 Gold class. Ben Bennyworth meanwhile making his way down the back straight, and as he heads his way up towards turn number 7, he'll be the last GT3 driver to complete his qualifying session. We do have the two racing team Astra drivers out on the circuit at the moment, a bit further up the road, and here you can see there was Sean Scooter and Elwin Sykes just behind, as we say hello to the racing team Astra driver Stefan Vessels in the YouTube chat. Vessels not joining us today, but we look forward to him returning in the coming weeks, and I hope you're doing well, Stefan. But meanwhile Scooter there deciding it's not enough and coming off the lap. Sykes crosses the line now. I think he feels that he's done a bit more to improve. Has he in practice? this? No, he has not. And with Bennyworth coming into the pit lane already from circuit being towed in, well, that's the GT3 session complete. It's Eric Benson on GT3 overall and gold pole by 2/10 over at Fred Extensible Dorey. And in the GT3 silver class, it's Gaz Williams who will line up 4th in the GT3s overall. And in the GT3 bronze class, it's Jordan Benoit who takes bronze pole position. And what for him is P11 in the class. But as our drivers make the way on in, and now we do have our proto machines out on the circuit, well, we're going to see some very fast and furious laps here. And one man who is not hanging around here, wanting to get that qualifying lap in as soon as possible, Paul Williams here for Speed 9 Esports, making his way through 13 and into 14. And of course, he has been the pace setter in the LMDH Silver class, which only has 2 attendants today, and that is Jochen Siegert and Paul Williams. Well, it's a prime opportunity for them, of course, to pick up some major points. But as we see Williams making his way down towards turn number 1 here, he'll be factoring. He wants to get things done nice and early and stay clear of the rest of the pack out on circuit, because for these LMDHs and also the LMP2s, their reliance on downforce, if they find themselves in a train with other cars, that dirty air is definitely going to wash away that front end. And what we mean by that is the car will be very prone to understeer under braking into medium and low speed corners. And then when they try to get the power on, the car will just want to point in a straight line. It will not want to turn. But we do see Williams making his way on down the back straight. We look to Craig Jones, meanwhile the SCCR esports driver here heading up towards turns 5 and 6, bringing his way on through the chicane sequence. And you can see the difference in body language of the BMW V8M hybrid machine compared to our GT3s. They take that chicane almost as if it's as light as a feather, in terms they can just dance their way between the 2 apex curves. Meanwhile, with the GT3s, they have to clatter their way over the curves. They haven't got enough time or rotation naturally in the car to be able to scythe their way in between the curves, and therefore we can expect that when it comes to our drivers potentially having to pass one another in the sprint and the feature races in those traffic scenarios, well, the LMDH drivers will have to play the gamble. Do they dare go too wide into that sequence, or do they just wait? And I think waiting may be the better option. As we see Jones here heading on out of the final couple of quarters to go on to another flying lap. We'll very shortly jump on board with Jones here to give you an on-board from the LMDH perspective. As we jump on board now and bring on the dashboard in the bottom right corner of your screen, he makes his way across the timeline, continues to build up through the gearbox and get ready to break his way into turn 1, all the way down for 186 miles an hour there from the 300-yard ball, breaking down to 2nd gear without a lockup. Coming through turn number 2, balancing the throttle in 2nd gear and powering it up into turn number 4. He goes through 3rd into 4th, onto the brakes once again, down to 3rd gear, just very deep there, carrying a bit too much speed, and with that has to take to the runoff gravel and onto the runoff surface. And a very nasty moment there for Jones. Thankfully not contact for the wall, but it's so easy to get it wrong here. And Jones articulated exactly that as he now just gradually brings the car up to speed, gets the gravel off the tyres and lets all of his peers on through. Well, as he makes his way back down towards turn number 7. Meanwhile, Gaz Williams, we can see here, making his way out of the final corner, but not the final quarter quite yet, but heading in towards the final couple of quarters, we should say, heading through turn 12 into 13. And as he comes on around right now, well, his initial pole position lap, or provisional pole position lap of 14.669, almost 6/10 faster than anybody else, but we've still got plenty of time here as he makes his way back to the timeline once again, goes purple in subsector 2 and subsector 4. Will it be a faster time for Williams? It is. It's now 14.336. Continue to raise the bar here as he heads into turn 1. And meanwhile, we look to Craig Jones, who gets ready to go on to another lap. And in fact, he's got a bit of traffic ahead of him. And speaking of drivers ahead who just completed laps, Benjamin McCluskey goes at P5 there on a 17.2 at 3.8 in the LMDH Gold class. And I think McCluskey will feel as though there's a lot more time out there, given the fact he is 3 seconds right now off of Williams' provisional pole time. But Danes there, Chris Danes, goes a 10th off pole with a 14.433. And I think Danes definitely now starting to get himself into a rhythm and getting his head down. And that for Danes, when he's got his head down and he's got himself absolutely bitted into something, there's no sign of him abated. He will absolutely go for it. And you can see the NXTGEN Racing Pink driver here find himself between 2 LMP2s. In fact, 1 LMP2 and 1 LMDH. That's the LMP2 and Nigel Stock in front of him. The privateer there, who will be on the racing line very shortly. And Danes will not be able to use this lap to improve now, given the fact it's been compromised. Albeit we can see Stock there going a bit deep and decides to just steer clear of the LMDHs, but already a little bit of a trip up between the 2 classes. But Stock currently the provisional pole sitter in the LMP2 class as he heads up towards turn number 10. But as he comes on through, and we do look just behind him to Mark Sykes. Well, Mark Sykes here making his way on around, of course, shouldering we should say, nursing an injury on his arm, and as he makes his way out to turn number 10 and into 11, I can tell you right now, for a number of these quarter sequences, he will be driving one-handed, whereas traditionally, of course, you'd race with two hands, but such is the injury, and therefore we may see him a little bit off the pace today, but still he's out there looking to get some points to the board, knowing that every point's critical as this championship continues to go on. But as he heads on through at turn number 14 and down towards turn number 1, he heads onto a flying lap, and we jump on board with him. Back grazed the wall there, and the sights are just drifting a little bit, and that's going to cost a bit of aero and speed down towards turn number 1 as he makes his way onto the brakes here, getting ready, and then braking at the 400-yard board, coming all the way down to first gear, 60 miles an hour at the apex, now powering through turn number 2, brings the car back into the throttle, up to second, up to third, rapid succession for the gears of the Dallara P217 LMP2 machine, and through turn 4 he goes in second gear, brings the car into the centre, then powers between the two apexes, absolutely plants it over them, and now down the back straight as he accelerates back up through the gearbox, up to fifth gear, getting ready to sight his brake marker, looking to his right hand side, here fifth, braking for 167 miles an hour, down to first gear, and as he comes through left-hander, keeps it over to left, lines up the straight line between 8 and 9, balancing the throttle in second gear, coming back over to left for turn number 10, rolling the car in there, deciding to use a lift off just to temper the car, and as he comes into turn number 11 and back up through the gears, as he heads up towards turn 12, let the car roll out to the left hand side, and then onto the brakes, he comes all the way down to first gear, into turn 12, keep the car in first, then bring out to second, stay a little bit wide, and go deep into turn 13, hit that late apex, now power out in first, and as he makes his way back up the gearbox here, despite his injury, still a smooth lap for Mark Sykes. He heads towards the timeline. In fact, the fastest of any LMP2 in sector 2. And as he crosses the line, what's it going to be for Sykes this time? Well, it's going to be an 18.186. And well, it may not be perfect, but he is right now within a second of Jarman's pole lap, the provisional pole lap in the LMP2s. We're 2 minutes to go now. We're coming down to the crunch, and we can see here that LMDH Gold class as Chris Daines currently leads the way in terms of the overall qualifying lap for our prototype classes, and also in the LMDH Gold class by 2/10 over Benjamin McCluskey, who has found the time. As we do see Daines heading towards the end of another lap. Well, meanwhile, speaking of McCluskey, here he goes on to another flyer as he makes his way through turn number 14, and we jump aboard with McCluskey here for a reference in the LMDH class. Powering his way down towards turn 1. He's got a personal best across all sectors on the previous lap, effectively. Now 1.5 temps off. And you'll see here as he breaks his way down, braking at the 400-metre board there, avoiding a lock-up in second gear. Nurses the car through turn 1 and then turn 2. Got to wait to get the car pointed straight before getting on the power. Now through turn 3 in third gear, braking early there to avoid the lock-up and roll the car off the brakes as he comes through turn 4. Takes a nice and central line as he heads through turns 5 and 6 flat out, and now down towards turn number 7. Now heading on down here and getting ready to brake once again. Not an ideal sector 1 compared to his previous best, but he'll look to make amends. He brakes at the 400-metre board there into turn 7 through the left-hander in second gear, and now getting ready for the chicane. Staying in third this time as he comes on through, balancing the throttle, brings the car over to left for turn number 10, stays in third again here so that way he can get back on the power a little bit more aggressively. And as he heads through turn number 11, flat out here all the way through the long right as he heads over to the left-hand side and brakes into turn number 12. Down the gearbox here, get himself set up for turn number 13 and heading into the left-hander, much like what we saw with Mark Sykes, deciding to go a little bit deep under braking on the outside to give himself a nice late apex, and now he comes on through the final quarters, going to one final lap, but that's a lap of the LMDH BMW V8M hybrid machine, brought to you by Benjamin McCluskey there as he crosses the timeline. Does not look to be an improvement this time around, I think getting himself set for one final lap and looking to do everything he can with all the battery available. But as our drivers head across the line, where we see Barrie Jarman there coming on through, does not improve in the LMP2 class there, currently provisional pole sitter by 2.5 tenths over Nigel Stock, but with the clock continuing to trickle down, and well, we can see for Jarman make his way out of turn 3 and up into 4. He'll be thinking now that time is of the essence here if he wants to find any more improvement, but meanwhile Mark Sykes comes across the line, and will he be able to improve from his previous lap of what is a 118.19? Well, I don't think so this time. 118.991 is what he finds, and then we do look to pull Williams across the line, their current LMDH Silver pole sitter, only what is there 600ths faster than teammate Jochen Siegert, albeit it's a bit of a lonely class for the LMDH Silvers, but still they'll be going for gold here. It means everything to them, and Williams goes straight on there, and well, he'll gradually try and recover the car. Alternatively, will to be a toe to the pits. It's a toe to the pits. And for Paul Williams, that effectively means if he can't rush out the pit lane soon as possible, his qualifying session will be over. And for Jochen Siegert, can he find a way to usurp his teammate and get pole position in class? Well, we'll have to wait and see as we say hello there to Stian Noor in the YouTube chat who says, go team slow-mo. And I can see Stefan Vessel saying there, I'm good, Paul. Bummed to miss this race, but here's the ball to the boys. And well, the team ethic at Racing Team Astra, of course, one of the strongest ethics down in the pit lane, all the team behind one another. And whether it's in this series or in other series, Racing Team Astra definitely bringing their A game to the racing. But as we see Siegert make his way onto another lap, well, for him right now, a 16.283 that previous lap. I think more of a sighter lap there. Chris Danes, meanwhile, heading on through and going into the final corner as he comes through turn number 14. That's across the line. He's got purple in sectors 1 and 3, not quite sector 2, but there a 13.936 his previous best. Does he raise the bar? He does, to a 13.789. Well, Dane's here now, 3.5 tenths faster than anybody else out there on circuit in the LMDH Gold class. And can this be his day today on pole position? I think it will be, given the fact that he just seems to be finding so much more pace in the car. Albeit I say that Benjamin McCluskey dancing his way through turn 12 into 13. He's gone personal best in sectors 1 and 2. He'll be looking to try and gain a little bit more time to steer himself clear of Gaz Williams as a minimum, if not close that deficit to Danes. Of course, it's a confidence boost if he can get within a couple of tenths of Danes, but right now 3.5 tenths. He crossed the line and he slashes the deficit by half to what is then 0.165 seconds. And now on a 13.954, I think for McCluskey, he's put the pressure on Williams to respond, and Danes will also keep in mind that McCluskey definitely seems to be on form. It's almost as if the rivalry from round 1 is back here in its ultimate element today, and we'll absolutely love it if that's the case. For the simple reason, Danes and McCluskey delivered at Fuji, and we want to see plenty more of that, no questions asked. But meanwhile, Jamie Dorey, your championship leader of the LMDH Gold class, currently P4, crosses the line there, one more lap to go, goes purple in the final sector and moves to P3 there, dropping Williams to P4, a 14.152. The next gen of racing drivers here, not quite on the pace compared to their rival and fellow teammate of Chris Danes. But as the clock strikes 25 minutes, this qualifying session is now over. In terms of our drivers who are on laps are allowed to finish them, but otherwise our drivers will need to be in the pit lane or making the way to the pits. And well, for Dorey, he's going to have the track in one of its prime conditions, but Danes has left it to the last possible moment as he makes his way down towards turn number 7, and he'll have the track in its ultimate element. But meanwhile, McCluskey comes to the timeline here, and it's not looking to be too much of an improvement. In fact, McCluskey does not improve there in terms of overall time. P2 the best he'll achieve today. Meanwhile, Nigel Stock comes out the final corner. Can he improve in the LMP2 class to the Barrie Jarman right at the end? A 17.176 is what he needs to beat, and he doesn't beat it. So for Nigel Stock, P2 will be where he starts in the LMP2 class. Congratulations to Barrie Jarman there for taking pole position. Meanwhile, we look a little bit further back towards the end of their laps. Jamie Dorey into the pit lane. In fact, he decides to come on in, and then Chris Danes will be the last driver to come on around, and he's also into the pit lane here. So qualified is complete. Overall pole in the LMDH and overall category will go to the LMDH Gold pole sitter of Chris Danes. Then it will be the LMDH Silver pole sitter of Paul Williams, who starts P6 overall on the grid, and in the LMP2 class, Barrie Jarman there, who will be taking the LMP2 pole that's P9 on the grid. And then, of course, as we mentioned in the GT3s, in the gold class, it's Eric Benson on pole, Baz Meacham in the silver class on pole, and Jordan Babois on pole in the GT3 bronze class. But it's definitely been an interesting qualifying session. We've seen times oscillate back and forth, but we've seen some firm favourites as well return to their top spots. And now, what will we expect in the races? Well, we're not too far away from going into the first race of today. It's the 20-minute sprint, and it is only a couple of minutes off. As our drivers make their way to the grid, this is how they line up for the sprint. It is Chris Danes on overall pole position and LMDH Gold pole there for Next Gen Racing Pink by 1.5 tenths over Benjamin McCluskey for Next Gen Racing Purple. Behind them on row 2, it's Jamie Dorey for Next Gen Racing Orange, joined by his Next Gen Racing Purple peer of Gaz Williams, with Craig Jones for SCCR Sim Sports there, started off our third row and being joined by the LMDH Silver pole sitter of Paul Williams. Moving down to the fourth row, Jochen Siegert there for Speed9 Esports, just behind his teammate, starts off the fourth row of the grid, joined by Team Slow-Mo Black's Magna Yondu, starts P8. Then we have Barrie Jarman, your LMP2 pole sitter for SCCR Sim Sports, starts off our fifth row, joined by close rival and privateer Nigel Stock. Mark Sykes and NXTGEN Racing Orange lines up P11, followed up by Kevin Stringer for SCCR Sim Sports, and then behind them on the grid it will be the GT3s, starting with Eric Benson, the Team Slow-Mo driver, taking GT3 overall pole and gold pole for Team Slow-Mo by a margin there of 1.5 tenths over Fred Extensible Dorey, the Team Slow-Mo teammate. And then we have on row number 8, Gavin Garner for NXTGEN Racing Pink, joined by the GT3 silver pole sitter of Baz Meacham. And on row number 9, it's Russell Fowler for Performance Esports, joined by NXTGEN Racing Orange, it's Paul Scott, with Stefan Albanese and Ben Bennyworth making up your 10th row, we should say, completing the top 20 for DRS Esport and the Privateer. You can see Jack Barker for Made for Racing, starting P21 on the 11th row, joined by Oli Martin at York for Team Slow-Mo. And on row at number 12, it is John Baywell, the Privateer, and your G3 bronze pole sitter, joined by Sean Scooter for Racing Team Astra. Further behind them, we can see as the field continues to trickle its way on down, we have Ingar Almklov and Espresso Rien on the 13th row, with Elwin Sykes for Racing Team Astra, joined by the Privateer Jorge Santos on the 14th row, and Daniel Stimmer for Russell's Universal Robots and the Privateer Artichance Continental on the 15th row. And then last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, that's our grid order, and we're about to go racing. And as our drivers get themselves set, they'll make their way very shortly to the timeline, albeit we can see quite a gap has been given already between our LMDH and our Proto club, in fact our GT3 classes, as the LMP2s have also fallen back quite a bit. They're respecting the rules, as is expected to give at least a couple seconds gap between each of the car classes before they go racing. But Benjamin Klasky and Chris Stage share the front row. They've been strangers to this. It's been a long time since we've seen this. We have to cast our minds back to round number 1, but the rivalry is going to reignite, and which of the two of them will be leading come the exit at turn number 2? Will it be the NXTGEN Racing Purple driver McCluskey? It'll be NXTGEN Racing Pigs, previously known as Rhino Motorsports, Chris Daines, who you can see on the left of your picture as they head out of the final corner. Daines will be the one to set the pace, and when will he go green? Let's wait and see. And it's lights out and away we go here as Chris Daines hits the throttle, and they make the way down towards turn number 1. And as they come down, you can see immediately McCluskey there of a slow start, having to go defensive versus Williams and also Dorey as they all come together. Jones on the inside there, but falling a little bit further back. But as they make the way on down, meanwhile we see the GT3s as they come down into turn number 1. Well, we've got Bennyworth there trying to siphon his way past Barker, but Russell Fowler just a little bit further ahead as they all head into the right hand here for the first time of asking. And well, we can tell you at the moment off screen, ladies and gentlemen, our timing tower screens are a little bit messed up at the moment. The times you see on the left hand side are correct, but what we've got in the booth are not correct, so we are trying to get that resolved. But as our drivers make the way on down and up into turn number 4, we look back up to the Proto classes and to Nigel Stock here, who's had a solid start, and he's got ahead of Jarman into turn number 1, and now trying to hold his way as they make the way to turn 7 onto the second half of this opening lap. But as they come at charging on through, Kevin Stringer not too far behind as they make the way through the second chicane and up into turn number 10, and Stringer getting ahead of Mark Sykes immediately on the run. And Stringer, of course, starting from the back of the group, not setting a good qualifying lap, and as he makes his way down through 11 and into 12 of the SCCR Sim Sports driver, I think will be giving a little bit of a push along to his teammate here as there's a lock up for both Stringer and Sykes there into turn 12. But meanwhile, as they make the way up towards the next set of corners here, 13 and 14, everything seems stationary at the moment between the group, and they head on towards turn number 1 once again. But meanwhile, we look to the front of the field. After one lap, Daines continues to lead ahead of McCluskey, who's P2, just behind Gaz Williams P3, and then Jamie Dorey P4, Jones P5, following hot pursuit, avoided up by what is there, Paul Williams, who's still got Jochen Siegert immediately behind him. No change between the LMDH Silver drivers, and then we can see it Magna Yond at the back. Further down the order, meanwhile, we're hearing there's a bit of drama in the GT3 class. Oh, goodness me! And Jack Barker there involved in an instant with, I believe, that is Daniel Stimman and Espresso Rien, but we're only seeing the aftermath of it. We're not seeing the full event. I wonder what on earth happened there. Well, right now, 3 drives at least in major damage as we look to Ingar Almklov here, who goes around the group, and Almklov falling a long way back as well. So Almklov involved in some sort of incident early on in the race, but meanwhile, whilst they all try to negotiate things and figure things out, we look back up to what will be the leader of the G3 Silver class, and we can see Stefan Albanese with a great start to this race, and meanwhile Baz Meacham dropping a long way down on the timing standings there. Oh, we're not quite sure what's happened to Meacham, but he's almost 1.5 minutes down as they make the way on a round. But I think there might be a little bit of error with regards to our timings, ladies and gents, for the simple reason that we do look to Meacham, well, right now as he makes his way through turn turn number 10. Well, he is leading in the GT3 Silver class, and we're not quite sure what's happened here. We are going to see if we can get a fix on our timings, but it does look as though all of our timings right now a little bit out of sequence as Mitchell comes on down through turn number 13 into 14. As he heads his way up towards another lap very shortly. We can confirm he is your GT3 Silver leader. It is not Paul Scott at this time as he heads on through and on to the next lap. As he heads on down, meanwhile Eric Benson continues to lead in what is there the GT3 Gold class. He breaks his way into turn number 1 and coming up through the right hand of the team slow-mo driver, hooking things up quite nicely for the time being, albeit he's got the pressure for an extendable Dorey just behind him. Dorey keeping him honest as they make the way onwards towards this next lap. Of course the change will be with Gavin Gardner not too far off as well. Will Dorey simply stay put, be the number 2 in the team in this situation, or will he decide that actually he wants to try and get ahead of Benson and gain the advantage as a result? Of course the team dynamic then, we've seen these two run together. We saw it at Circuit of Spa-Francorchamps, but they needed to work hard in order to try and fend off Gavin Gardner while also focusing on hunting down Russell Fowler in the feature. But as they head up towards the second chicane here, well, both drivers right now just keeping their heads to the task, and meanwhile Gardner only at 6 steps off there and staying well in touch. But as he heads his way up towards turn number 12, getting ready to bounce to the brakes once again, albeit the Ferrari driver not quite close enough yet as he brakes on down very shortly. A little bit further off Baz Beach there, your GT3 Silver leader in a bit of a comfortable place, a little bit off of the top 3, a whole 1.2 seconds off of the top 3, but in return does have a sizable advantage of what is 2 seconds to Russell Fowler behind. But as he heads away to complete this lap, we look back from him up to what is the LMP2 class. Oh, goodness me, and we've got a car going around there, and well, that was one of our GT3s getting it wrong, but meanwhile, Barrie Jarman, I think, involved in an incident there with the GT3, the SCCR Sim Sports driver, dropping from P2 in the LMP2 class, and as he brings himself back up to pace, it's gone a bit wrong for the number 10 driver, but Kevin Stringer picks up the pieces in return, and now it'll be Stringer who's got the task of hunting down Stock as he heads up towards turn number 10. Now coming up through the right hand here, we do get a brief moment to take a look back at some of the incidents that happened on the opening lap, including an incident between RT Chatziconstantu and Jorge Santos on the opener as we went green flag racing. In fact, as they made their way into turn number 13 here, and this was off the immediate race start. Both drivers coming through, and we can see there Jorge Santos going a little bit wide and Chatziconstantu before he even got to the start-finish line. It all unfolded and went wrong for him, and well, very unfortunate there. Santos just going to the grass and the car kicking on around. Meanwhile, we then take a look back at what happened on lap number 2, with Jack Barker coming through the final corner here, and as he made his way through, the rear of the car started to go, and it's just gone. And at that point, he's a passenger in the car as he hits the wall, and as he tries to reverse it away, well, I think this is where it all kicks off, and with the team slow-mo car veering to the right there, I think it's suspected that Barker was just going to reverse across the circuit, although we don't have the full story from what is Espresso and Rian's view, but I think we can ride on board here and understand what happened. Was the team slow-mo leftovers driver made his way out the final corner. He'll see Barker on his right-hand side, and I think he saw, or I think he guessed, that Barker was reversing, and in return assumed that Barker was going to reverse it even further, but it wasn't to be for rear. We got pulled up there, and a bit of misinterpretation, and it's all gone wrong for the trio, because of course Daniel Stimmel involved that instance as well, so the Rossum Universal Robots driver having a difficult day, and all 3 of them there having to be towed to the pits. Well, at least we know that Rian and Barker had to be towed. We're not sure about Stimmel, but I think he may have had to. Meanwhile, we look back to live pictures now, and we can see Paul Williams here in the LMDH Silver class, looking to try and make the move on Jamie Dorey on the left of your picture. Dorey there holding the inside line. Williams defending here, but behind he still does have Jochen Siegert trying to keep the pressure on as they make the way into turn 2. And as they come up through and up towards turn number 4, they charge. Well, Magda Yonland not too far off either, only 4 steps back. And the team slow-mo driver, he may be at the back of the LMDH class overall at the moment, but still trying to make a little bit of ground. He'd love to try and take the place of a Jamie Dorey if he can. But as the drivers head onto the back straight, I think it's a bit of a stalemate at the moment. All trying to decide when do they want to really deploy that battery, when do they want to go 100% versus run the car at 90%. But as they head out to turn number 7, up towards 8 and 9, looking further up the road. Gaz Williams here still trying to chase after Benjamin McCluskey. He's got the worry of Craig Jones behind, In fact, as we ride on board the gearbox here of the Next Gen Racing purple driver, you can see Jones and the SCCR SimSport machine inching ever closer as they head on through turn number 13, and it's a bit of a cut-off there for Albanese versus Jones, and will Jones then trying to come on through, expecting that Albanese would give him the space as well. Williams there with a grace to the wall as he goes around Barker, and this is exactly the point we were talking about in the pre-show about how the traffic here is absolutely terrifying to negotiate, because there's so little room to be able to cut your way through when you're in the faster class of machine, and you really do have to pick your places to go. And of course, this being a 20-minute sprint, we're already 8 minutes in, and Jones there wanting to push the tempo, and Williams but almost being caught completely out on the apex of 30 versus Albanese. Now no, we're not pointing the finger at Albanese, we've only seen one part of the story there. I think both drivers would argue their perspectives that they're racing along the line, but right now Jones hopes to come back as that gap has got up to 1 second versus Williams as he heads into 7 this time. As he breaks his way in. Meanwhile, we've got a change for the lead of the LMDH Silver class. Williams there being passed by Jochen Siegert as he tucks in to the racing line. And meanwhile, on the inside, that's Elwin Sykes P3 in the G3 Bronze class, who's just trying to steer clear and be all innocent in this scenario. And you can understand why he doesn't want any part of this. Meanwhile, in the LMP2 class, it's Kevin Street on the inside and Nigel Stock into turn 7. Up the inside he goes on the brakes and he gets it done. SCCR SimSports, and we've got changes of position here, left, right and centre as they make their way to turn 10. Now a nice move there from String, and I think we might be able to see the full story behind how the move was made, and in fact the replay is with us now. With that, the move started off in the run to turn 1 as they made their way down onto the brakes. The Stringer on the outside here, and Stock not having enough confidence on the brakes to be able to push back versus Stringer. Went a little bit deep there in the run into turn 1 and had to back the car off. But then Stringer coming up towards turn number 4, and I suspect here in the run through the right-hander, Jorge Santos there, and Stringer just having to back off to let Santos move aside. And this is what set up the run into the corner, and in the end, Stringer being comfortable enough to feel clear. And as we return to the live pictures, meanwhile, further batting is afoot as Paul Williams has returned to the lead of the LMDH Silver class, and now he's trying to break away from Jochen Siegert. The gap between the two teammates, 6 tenths at the moment as they make their way into turn 7 once again. Although I think that gap is going to not stay that large for long, because as they head up towards turns 8 and 9, Williams here has got the traffic of Jordan Baybois, your GT3 bronze leader, to contend with as he heads on through the right-hander and really caught up there behind the Ferrari. And as he gets the power down, you can see Jochen Siegert by comparison having a much more comfortable run as they head into 12. Siegert looks up the inside, on the brakes he goes, sees the doors open but not able to push it open any further under braking, and will they stay as is for the time being. Meanwhile, Nigel Stock still over the back of Stringer as they head out to turn 12 themselves. He cuts back to the inside here, puts the dummy in, and as they make the way under braking, he gets ahead, goes deep, and Stringer cuts back. They go 3 wide into turn 13. On the outside, it's Elwin Sykes, and Sykes there takes the grass. I'm not sure if there's a little bit of contact with Sykes' car, or whether he just steered clear of some understeer there on a low-speed corner. But either way, that's cost him, because now Ingot Almclovis moved up to P3 in the G3 Bronze class, but it's not over yet. Nigel Stock cuts back to the outside into turn 1. String on the left of your picture, Stock on the right of your picture. This is the lead of the LMP2 class. Stringer defends hard here. Stock tries to go outside to inside, but in the end there's only one line through, and Stringer makes sure that it's his line as they head up towards turn 4. Further up down the field, we should say, in terms of GT3s, we'll see here Gavin Gardner being caught behind Baz Meacham, your GT3 Silver leader versus the second place GT3 Gold driver. And as they head up towards turn number 10, well, right now Eric Benson is already 6.5 seconds clear as they make their way towards the end of this lap. Benson absolutely just disappearing off into the distance and showing no signs of hesitating. Meanwhile, just behind this battle is the continued medley for the LMDH Silver class, as you can see, outbrakes himself there into turn 12 and collects the back of Garrett Gardner. And well, Gardner would not have been expecting that at all as they made their way to the corner. Gardner there, a complete victim of the situation from our perspective, as Siegert now, I think, has to bring himself back together and, well, see whether the damage is enough to potentially warrant a run to the pits. But right, for the 248 driver, this is not a situation he wanted to be in, and it releases Paul Williams to run off with the lead in the LMDH Silver class. But as they make their way back up to speed, meanwhile, we do look to Jordan White, your GT3 bronze leader, as he heads down towards turn number 1. And you see looking comfortable. But meanwhile, speaking of one drivers not comfortable, Kevin Stringer, the LMP2 class, will still having a battle with Nigel Stock. It's too wide here to turn 1. Gavin Goddard immediately takes to the runoff area there, says, I don't want to be any part of this. As you can see, Stringer, they're really trying to make sure that Stock felt as though he's on the outside line, and therefore boxed in a little bit between Stringer and also Gardner. But as they make the way to turns 5 and 6, now this is absolutely painful for Stringer. He's got 2 GT3s in front of him, will fight in for position technically, and as they make the way up towards turn number 1, well, right now Stringer having to cover off position. Stock trying to go around the outside, but he can't quite make it count there. But it's beautiful racing between the 2 LMP2 drivers, and we've been waiting to see the kettle boil over between them. It's been building for some time, but now it has, and right now these two are absolutely going for it. As Stock gets a good run out of 10 there, Stringer boxed in behind the GT3 once again, but building the speed up here. Stock's going to go high and wide, but as they break the way to 12, he's got to turn in, and Stringer there immediately on the outside gives it the space. And as they come into turn 13, no change for the pair of them as they make the way out of 13 and now onwards towards the next lap. As they come charging on around. Of course, it's been an interesting start for many a driver here, but we are still in the second half of the race and we've got plenty of time to go. And with the closest battle is in the LMP2 class here, as once again Stringer covers off Stock. He goes one way, he goes the other. Stock looks around the outside there, to try to find the dummy, but Stringer caught it out. But I think Stringer will also be mindful there of not trying to do too many double moves under overtaking defence. And for the simple reason there, you are allotted one move and that's your lot. And I think Stock will also be wary of how that played out. But these two right now, tooth and nail racing as they head onto the back straight. Meanwhile, looking from them to a bit further down the order, we look to Daniel Stimman here. Of course, the Rossum's Universal Rails Mercedes caught up at that instant between himself, Jack Barker, and what was Espresso Rien on the opening laps and pressing on him. The Mercedes driver not picking up as much damage compared to his counterparts, albeit a wounded Mercedes. In fact, he has had to come into the pit since then, so we should confirm that he has had to take the fast repair. He is a lap down, and as he presses on here down towards turn number 7, his next target will be effectively what is Elwin Sykes, albeit Stimman is a lap down on Sykes, so therefore I think his key focus will be to just simply bring the car on home and get himself set up on the grid for the next race of the day. Because of course, remember, it is a reverse class grid. But as he heads on around here and up towards turn 12, meanwhile we look towards the back of the field to the front of it, and Chris Danes here leading by 3 seconds over Benjamin McCluskey as he finds a little bit of traffic heading into what is turn number 11. And navigating past Espresso Rien there, the GT3 Silver Drive P6 in class. Well, Danes just running into the distance with Benjamin McCluskey, 3 seconds off and matched him for pace. Meanwhile, it's been an instant for Nigel Stock. He's gone round at turn number 1, and well, what exactly has happened to Nigel Stock? Let's find out. So again, battling with Stringer in the run down towards turn number 1. Stringer covering him off and Stock being made to go around the outside. That's Russell Fowler, and a bit of contact there between Stringer and Stock going on around. Well, from our perspective, it did look as though the two drivers both trying to share the equal amount of space, and in the end, there's only room for one, and Stock being found to go on around. I don't think he'll be too pleased with how that's played out. I think Stringer will also argue, what else could I do? But the two drivers there battling hard, and that battle has subsided for the meantime, as we will stop then side by side with Jones. And well, not too pleased. In fact, that was Barrie Jarman, we should point out, as we return to the live pictures, fending off Jarman, and now Jarman looking to try and get back past Stock with 4 minutes remaining plus the final lap, and it's a 1 second gap as we look back to the third place LMP2 driver. Now as they cover out of turn 12 and into 13, looking up the inside their bed at Bennyworth, who sees and steers clear, and the Mark Sykes not too far off either, as the next gen racing orange driver charged on in the 666 machine. But as he comes on to the next lap, falling a little bit back to 1.4 seconds off of what is at Jarman there as they head down towards turn number 1. And as they power on down, meanwhile, we look to Jack Barker here battling with Stefan Albanese. And Albanese let down much like Barker, and Albanese involved in an instant separate to Barker's on the opening laps. But as they head up towards turn 1, Albanese there puts in the middle of the road. Barker, meanwhile, in fact, as Albanese pulls over to the left-hand side from his perspective, right from our camera, Barker looks up the inside there, but hasn't got enough on the brakes and backs off as they come into turn 1. I was wondering there if he was going to go at full send under braking, but I think he's cognizant of the fact there's plenty more points available today if he doesn't bring home P4 in the sprint. But as they make the way into turn 4, Now they've got the LMDH starting to come through the LMDH leaders of Dade and McCluskey is now. McCluskey heads on through past the Silver drivers, and therefore it was going to be a bit of a reset. All with Albanese, a poor run coming off of the chicane, and Barker is through to take P4 for Major Racing. Albanese have a little flash of lights there, and I think trying to distract Barker in return as Albanese looks up the inside, can't find it, but Jack Barker makes the move and capitalises on the situation. Looking from them to your G3 bronze leader. Meanwhile, Jordan Baybar, who's just up the road from them, albeit a lap ahead of them effectively, and right now in a very comfortable place with a 6-second advantage over P2 in class driver Jochen Siegert. You can see here the racing team Astra driver from South Africa pressing on and running to a comfortable P2 with 1.5 seconds advantage over Ingot Almklov as he heads up towards the right-hander at turn number 12, but still plenty of time in the day, and it's not over until they pass that checker flag. Of course, anything can happen, and we have seen a lot today in this opening race. But as Scooter presses on, Almklov here back in P3 and holding quite an advantage over Elwyn Sykes, an advantage which now extends to 28 seconds. The top three in the GT3 bronze class getting away with proceedings comfortably. Meanwhile, everybody else in the class having a difficult day of racing here in the sprint at Indianapolis. But as our drivers make their way down towards turn number 1, 2 or 3 more laps to go depending on class and where you are out of the circuit. But for our GT3 bronze drivers, there's 2 more laps available as they press on here. You can see Scooter goes a little bit deep, as we ride on board the team slow-mo leftovers driver here of Almklov. He'll see that and see it as a weakness. The Scooter goes deep again, albeit brings it back together nicely. In fact, Almklov there not carrying anywhere near enough speed on the exit 4 to look menacing in the run down towards turn 7. Although I say that, he gets an absolute beautiful run off the chicane compared to Scooter, and Scooter is going to be vulnerable as they on the brakes. Almklov goes in, and there's contact between the two as Almklov goes straight on, and well, I think that contact there may have upset the braking effects of Almklov's Ferrari, but what exactly led to that contact? Let's take a look back. Was they made their way down, Scooter there on the inside, and you can see under braking the car just slightly wobbled towards the apex. The nose just slightly came in, and in return as Almklov tried to stream on through, well, the two have made contact. So I think it was nothing major with regards to the potential contact between the two cars, and therefore any damage picked up. But Almklov there will be frustrated given the fact I think he'll feel as though he had it on there for a potential move, albeit it's a very bold move to break that late, but he went for it, and now he's lost out on the opportunity. Still, he'll be holding on to P3. No questions asked for the team slow-mo leftovers driver, but I think he'll always have on his mind now what could have been in this race until he gets that checker flag. Meanwhile, speaking of that checker flag, 30 seconds away plus a lap to go, and we do look for our GT3s. Back to our LMDH Gold drivers here, and we'll hear his Dane to follow up 6 seconds behind by McCluskey, and well, it looks so Dane's here just continue to sprint away as an extra racing purple driver here does not have an answer, albeit they have had to manage some traffic. You can see on the circuit map in the top right corner of your screen how the traffic really now spreading out across the road, and when you're in the fastest car on the grid, it does become a very difficult thing to negotiate. You need to be cognizant of where you're going to catch the traffic, but as he comes out the final corner, he won't be catching any more traffic. Instead, he'll be catching the checkered flag. He comes to the line, and Chris Danes is your winner in the sprint for the LMDH Gold class. 5.6 seconds clear. Benjamin McCluskey, who comes on home P2 in the class, and then very shortly we will have your GT3 Silver winner of Baz Beecher, who comes to the line to make it another win in his campaign. 7.5 seconds clear of Ben Bennyworth, and well, we've still got plenty more drivers to come on through. Speaking of which, Eric Benson's already crossed the line, your GT3 Gold winner, and we will have Paul Williams coming out of the final corner here, albeit with a lot of traffic on around him, and it'll be Paul Williams who comes on through to take the win in the LMDH Silver class, and Jordan Baybar who takes the win in the GT3 Bronze class there by a margin of 8.3 seconds as he crosses the line. A deserved win for Baybar, no question about it. And well, as I try to make the way through, what about the LMP2 class, I hear you ask? Well, here is Kevin Stringer comfortably ahead of Barrie Jarman right now with Mark Sykes and Nigel Stock. The rest of the runners in the class in their given order. Nigel Stock has already finished his race a lap down, but Kevin Stringer here, he held off the charge of Nigel Stock, albeit a little bit of controversy between the two of them to turn 1 towards the end, but still he's got it done circuit, and the SCCR Sim Sports driver is your LMP2 winner here by 8.5 seconds over Barrie Jarman, his teammate. They make it a 1-2 for SCCR Sim Sports, and Mark Sykes Not too far off the pace, comes home in P3 there for Next Gen Racing Orange in the class. But with that is most, if not all, of our drivers' races now complete, ladies and gentlemen. A fantastic race up and down the field, albeit one not without drama. And well, speaking of drama, I'm sure there may be some reports in the steward booth afterwards with regards to post-race incidents, but let's take you through those race results subject to any steward's inquiries. We start off, of course, with our overall results, and we can see there, focus on our top 10 and where our podium finishers finished in the running order of the overall standings. Chris Daines, your winner in the Next Gen Racing Pink Machine, taking the overall, the LMDH overall and the LMDH Gold win by 5.6 seconds over Benjamin McCluskey. The Next Gen Racing purple driver went for the move early on, but he couldn't quite find it. And then Gaz Williams completing the overall podium there, P3, and we're just not quite on the pace of the top two for Next Gen Racing purple. Craig Jones at SCCR Sim Sports in P4, brilliant battle lead to start with, and always staying close to Gaz Williams, but in the end not quite able to get the job done. But he'll be looking to try and make it happen in the feature, with Jamie Dorey rounded off the top 5, and then Paul Williams P6 for Speed9 Esports, your LMDH Silver winner, ahead of Magna Jonland, who the Team Slow-Mo Black driver, finished ahead of SCCR Sim Sports Kevin Stringer, their P8, and your LMP2 winner. Congratulations to Kevin Stringer, just ahead of Jochen Siegert, who finished P9, second place in the LMDH Silver class, and then Barrie Jarman completing the overall top 10 for SCCR Sim Sports, taking P2 in the LMP2 class. Best of the rest in P alone, Mark Sykes there, round off the LMP2 podium for Next Gen Racing Orange. And then our next major contributor, your winner in the GT3 Gold class, P13 overall, Eric Benson there for Team Slow-Mo, taking the winning class there in emphatic fashion, ahead of your GT3 Silver winner, P14 of Baz Meacham. The privateer, much the same as Benson, dominating the class in this sprint race. Then Russell Fowler, P15, second in the GT3 Gold class, another solid drive for the Performance Link Esports driver, ahead of the second place GT3 Silver driver of Ben Bennyworth, the privateer, who pipped Paul Scott to the post, and Paul Scott wrapping up the GT3 Silver podium for Next Gen Racing Origin P17. Frederick Stensbold Dorey there, P18 overall, and third place on the GT3 Gold podium for Team Slow-Mo. And as we continue to look down the finishing positions, we can see at P19 there, and your GT3 bronze winner back to the top step. It's been a couple of races, but he's back there at last. Jordan Babois brings on home the win, well clear of Sean Scooter, who finishes P2 at P20 overall for the GT3 bronze class for Racing Team Astra. And then Ingar Almcloth, P21, rounds off the GT3 bronze podium there for Team Slow-Mo leftovers. As we continue to look down the order there, out of our 30 starters in the end, 29 finishers, albeit one retirement of RT Chatsconstanto, the privateer there with that instant before he could truly get underway. Unfortunate between him and Jorge Santos, but still he'll be looking forward to the feature race. And as we come on to the individual class finishing positions, starting with the LMDH Gold class, we can see Chris Daines there, your winner by 5.6 seconds over Benjamin McCluskey, with Gaz Williams rounding off the podium. And then Craig Jones not too far off there, missing out by 2.5 attempts, ahead of Jamie Dorey, with Magna Jonland completing the LMDH Gold finishing positions. Then we come on to the LMDH Silver class, and we can see Paul Williams there, your winner for Speed9 Esports in a depleted class, albeit the battle between himself and teammate Jochen Siegert went all the way down to the wire on the opening half of the race, but a major incident between Jochen Siegert and Gavin Gardner in the end, costing Siegert dear. And as we come on to the LMP2 class, we can see their confirmation, Kevin Stringer crossing the line, your winner for SCCR Sim Sports, ahead of his teammate by 8.4 seconds, with Barrie Jarman bringing on home that 1-2 there, and Mark Sykes P3 for Next Gen Racing Orange. Nigel Stock finishing a lap down as he was overtaken by Chris Daines before he could go on to the final lap that Chris Daines completed. We then come on to the GT3 classes, and we can start with the GT3 Gold class, and we can see here Eric Benson taking the win in the GT3 Gold class for Team Slow-Mo by 11 seconds the end over Performance Link Esports' Russell Fowler, with it being a P1, P3 for Team Slow-Mo. Frederick Stensbold Dorey not able to bring home the 1-2 with his teammate, but still happy with that podium, and ahead of his teammate Ole Martin Muirk, with Gavin Gardner at P5 there in a difficult race for the Next Gen Racing Pink driver. Then coming on to the GT3 Silver class, Baz Meacham taking the win by 7.3 seconds over fellow privateer Ben Bennyworth, with Paul Scott only a further 3.5 seconds off the pace there for Next Gen Racing Orange. And then Jack Barker, Stefan Albanese and Espresso Rin all finishing the race a lap down, P4 through to P6. And then come on to lastly the G3 Bronze class. And we can see here Jordan Baywell completing his run to bring home the win by 8.2 seconds over Racing Team Asher's Sean Scudder, with Team Sligo leftovers Ingot Almclub completing the podium. And while I think for Scudder, he'll be absolutely pleased with the return to the podium, given the fact it's been some time since we've seen him on those venerable steps. Elwyn Sykes in P4 for Racing Team Asher, not to be his race today, but still plenty more to come in the feature race from him, I'm certain. And then Daniel Stimon, Jorge Santos and Artie Chatsconstantu completed the G3 bronze standings, but keep in mind, of course, with Chatsconstantu not finishing the race, he'll therefore be starting last of the GT3 bronze drivers, as we're to understand it. But those are the race results, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, I do think they may be subject to some stewards' inquiries, but of course, we won't be having any stewards' inquiries between now and the feature, because the feature is only a few minutes away. We'll be back in approximately 7 to 8 minutes' time, and how our drivers get on in the 60-minute test at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Don't go anywhere, you won't to miss it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then for the build-up to the feature race. The second component of round 6 of the Next Gen Racing Proto GT3 Championship Season 2, as brought to you today from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the state of Indiana in the United States of America. And, well, what a sprint race we had. We expected it to be tight. We expected it to be a traffic jam orientated race, and there was no question about it, with the overlap between the classes definitely catching out many out there, whether in the GT3, the LMP2 or the LMDH class. And whilst the batting was quite eventful at the front of the field for the opening couple of laps, things definitely started to calm down once our drivers got themselves in full swing, and then the traffic did seem to take over. And one driver who knew all about that, Gaz Williams, who in the end had to fight hard for what was P3 in the LMDH Gold class, with his rival Craig Jones not too far behind him in terms of pace, but in the end being able to utilise the GT3 class traffic in order to assist him in keeping his rival at bay. But of course now, with our drivers heading into that 60-minute feature, it's going to be 3 times the duration. There's a mandatory pit stop thrown in there, and well, that does lead to even more variables in the mix. But as we do see our drivers get themselves set in this final practice warm-up session before they go racing once again, we look at Russell Fowler here, the Performance Link Esports Mercedes driver, and whilst the Mercedes hasn't necessarily been on the pace this season, arguably based on the current iRacing balance performance, Russell Fowler has definitely found a way to make the 6.3 litre V8 naturally aspirated Mercedes engine absolutely raw and achieve a score. And now he's trying to do so again today with a podium finish in race 1 of today. He'll be looking to try and make it 2 podiums out of 2, but can he go the full distance and potentially make it a win in the feature? Of course, he'd like to have back-to-back feature wins from Spa last time out. It would have given a good number of points in the championship, and also given that massive confidence boost, which every driver does want to know they're riding a high and they're riding away. But at the same time, with the pace that we saw from Eric Benson, the flyer in the GT3 class, the team slow-mo driver in a world of his own, it would seem, I think the Audi R8 LMS driver will be hard-pressed here. If he can find his way through the field rapidly, I think he may just try and run away with this for the second time today. Well, we can see there a number of you in the YouTube chat talking about how things played out in the sprint race, and well, a bit of a challenging one. I'll definitely agree with you all there, as Bottle Job saying the GT3 start in general was interesting, and as Artie there saying in the YouTube chat, the GT3 bronze start was interesting. So I think a lot of drivers there, particularly the GT3 class, being caught out in the sprint start, but perhaps it'll be less eventful at feature race start. When I say less eventful, the only events we really want are hard battles into turn number 1. Of course, we never want to see a driver go off circuit or be involved in a nasty accident before they've even been able to turn the first lap. But as Benson crossing the line there, we do look to Danes from one leader to another. The Next Gen Racing peak drive parking on up and deciding that he's done enough to get himself ready. He's in the zone, and Sean Scudder, meanwhile, with that run to a podium finish in the GT3 bronze class in race number 1. The racing team at Astro Outfit will be absolutely pleased with that, and they'll be now hoping he can make it 2 out of 2. Could we potentially see his teammate Elwin Sykes also step onto the podium? Didn't quite have the pace in at race 1, plus at the end of an instant cost him quite dear, but for Elwin Sykes here, he's going to have another opportunity, and if he can be guaranteed on one driver who, when he sees an opportunity, he will take it, it is this man, because he makes it out towards turn number 4. It doesn't matter what class he races in, whether it be GT3s, touring cars, you name it, he absolutely loves racing, and every time he takes the circuit, it's with that cheeky smile that you can see in his profile photo there, and well, he always is looking to try and improve and get himself onto the podium. But as he heads on down towards turn number 7, we're only 2 minutes away from going to the grid for the feature, and well, what else can we expect in that feature race? Well, we have typically seen, much like at Spa last time out, normally the pit stops do start to occur around the 20-minute mark and have completed by the half-an-hour mark. There does seem to be a bit of a lean into the first half of the race, and therefore this race is not symmetrical in terms of that pit stop strategy. It's asymmetrical in normally a shorter first stint, a little bit of a longer second stint, but also our drivers were to consider that tyre degradation. And as we can see on screen, again, with regards to the weather, we are not expecting it to be a hot track. It's only 19 degrees centigrade at the moment, 18 degrees ambient, and that will mean that drivers do take a while to get into the temperature zone, and they're not just going to naturally come up to high temperature immediately. Also, it could also mean the risk that some drivers will slide off circuit under braking, particularly in the LMDH machines. We saw a number of drivers have that happen in qualifying and also in the race, but as Ole Martin Muir, they just decided to go straight on and bring the car to a gradual halt. And we look to Jorge Santos with such a low track temperature, it does mean that tyre wear may not be as big of consideration or concern as it has been at other circuits recently. It may be quite a comfortable race of tyres, and it really comes all down to being able to now lap after lap and not have to worry about what else lies in the mix in terms of the traffic on circuit. But as our drivers get themselves set, not too far to go now, but we do get underway once more today. And everybody absolutely itching to go racing. Well, who will be the one who takes it to the top and brings on home the win in their respective class? Will we have repeat winners between our races, or will we have new winners? We'll find out all that and more. But place your bets, ladies and gentlemen, in the YouTube chat. Do let us know what you're expecting to have happen in this feature race. I think we're definitely in for a thriller, but who exactly is going to come out on top? Speaking of coming out on top, the LMP2 dry hero Kevin Stringer coming out on top in that sprint race versus Nigel Stock. Can we expect more of a battle between the two of them once again? Well, the checker flag comes out on this practice session. It is time for us then, and all drivers to make their way into the pit lane as Kevin Stringer does so, and then we'll be going back out onto the grid for the build-up to race number 2. So this is how they line up then for our feature race of today. Nigel Stock takes overall reverse grid pole position there for Team Slow-Mo Black in the LMDH Gold class, joined by Jamie Dorey from NXTGEN Racing Orange. Behind them on row 2 will be Craig Jones from SCCR Sim Sports, who's joined by NXTGEN Racing Purple's Gaz Williams. On row 3 we have the pair of Chris Danes from NXTGEN Racing Pink and Jochen Siegert for Speed 9 Esports. Siegert taking LMDH Silver pole. Now on row 4 to complete the LMDH is Paul Williams for Speed 9 Esports and Benjamin McCluskey for NXTGEN Racing Purple. Then we have Nigel Stock starting in P9 there. The priority is joined by Mark Sykes, starting P10 for NXTGEN Racing Orange. And then we have Barrie Jarman from SCCR Sim Sports with Kevin Stringer alongside, and they make up your LMP2 class with Nigel Stock on the pole position. And as we down and look to our GT3s, we can see Gavin Gardner there for NXTGEN Racing Pink taking a GT3 Gold pole, joined by Team Slow-Mo's Ole Martinbill on the 7th row. On row 8, it's Team Slow-Mo's Fred Extensbo Dorey, joined by Russell Fowler for Performance League Esports. And then Eric Benson for Team Slow-Mo and Team Slow-Mo leftovers Espresso Rien, who takes GT3 Silver pole and completed the top 20. Stefan Albanese for DRS Esport and made for aces Jack Barker, who line up together on row number 10. On row 11, it's Paul Scott for NXTGEN Racing Orange, Ben Bennyworth, the privateer, followed up on row number 12 by Baz Meacham and Jorge Santos, who takes GT3 bronze pole. And as we make our way to our final 3 rows, Daniel Stimman and Elwin Sykes on row 13, and got Alan Clover and Sean Scott on row 14, and Jordan Baybar and Artie Chatsconstantu on the final row of the grid. As our drivers get ready to go racing once again, there's only a couple more corners to go, and we can see already Magda Yonlin getting ready to take us racing here as he makes his way through turn number 11 as gradually as he does so behind the pace car. And for Yonlin, this is an opportunity here to try and hold some early track position, and if he can hold it before we get the run into the traffic of the GT3s, then the Team Slow-Mo Black driver from Norway may just be able to pull off a podium here. He's not been on the pace all day, but of course the race can change tone at any moment, and sometimes you don't have to be the fastest driver out on circuit in order to be the winner. You've just got to be smart and consistent. But how will he get on? Indeed, how will all of our drivers get on? Well, the pace car's about to pull away, and it'll be Yonlin who becomes the pace car as he gets ready to take us racing. And it's lights out and away we go here for race number 2 of the day as Yonlin gets us underway. Jamie Dorey on the right of your picture. Meanwhile, look at Jones. He's absolutely roaring up the left-hand side there as he makes his way down on the inside. Jones going on the brakes. He's going to try and make it a 2-for-1 special on the braking, and I think he may just get it as Dorey then tries to hold the outside to inside line. Jones then made to back off, sliding in the end. Jones gains 1 but not 2. Meanwhile, further back we see in the LMP2 class Barrie Jarman still holding off Kevin Stringer and Mark Sykes as they make their way up into turn 4. Nigel Stock started for the pit lane due to technical issues, it would seem, but meanwhile the GT3 class, Gavin Gardner holding on to the lead of the class as he makes his way out of turn 4, and well, with Fred Extensbo Dorey right behind him here, it looks like everybody continued together nice and early in the GT3 class, but no major incidents this time as Stock leaves the pit lane. Meanwhile, Baz Meacham trying to make it 3 wide here with both Ben Bennyworth and also Paul Scott. Paul Scott defects the racing line. Bennyworth on the inside here, Baz Meacham backs out, you can see on the inside, it got Alan Club there, in fact on the outside as they break the wound down. They all settle down here as they head up towards turns 8 and 9, making their way through the chicane. chicane. One way through here, it's not too wide. They all begin to go in sequence. Meanwhile, we're hearing there's been an instant further up the road. It's involved Chris Danes of some description, also potentially Craig Jones. The two drivers have had some sort of altercation or separate altercations in quick succession, but either way, Chris Danes has fallen back to a degree, but trying to pick his way back through the order as rapidly as possible. But meanwhile, up front here after one lap, it is Jamie Dorey for Next Gen Racing Orange who leads. He heads down towards turn number 1 ahead of Gaz Williams P2. Benjamin McCluskey and Magna Yolland follow on through, and it's Jochen Siegert, your LMDH Gold, LMDH Silver leader, we should say, who is there behind them in P5, followed by Paul Williams P6, and then we have Kevin Stringer, your LMP2 leader, who makes his way in P7 up towards turn number 4 ahead of Barrie Jarman, and then Mark Sykes a bit further behind. Albeit Mark Sykes has gone off circuit there, and well, Craig Jones comes on through, picks up the pieces as he continues to fight his way back out the order. Chris Danes not too far off either, and meanwhile we look to the GT3s, and Russell Fowler here was Mark Sykes that stays wide on the outside. They're all coming on through here, and Sykes just hoping to wait his turn to be able to rejoin this race. Well, it's been a very quick start for our GT3 drivers, and you can see there just behind Stefan Albanese, who's weird to understand it is your GT3 Silver leader. Looking up the inside here, Fowler's going for the move nice and early, but in the end, he hasn't got the brakes. Meanwhile, there's contact there between Fowler and Muir there a bit early on the brakes, and Fowler coming in a bit hot, and as they come through turns 8 and 9, well, Albanese is going to seize on this and say, right, I've got to come on through, but Fowler here stays on the inside into 10. They give one another plenty of space as they come through 10 into 11, and this is when the Mercedes will be able to use its straight line power in order to just stay one step ahead of Albanese's Audi as they head up towards turn number 12. Onto the brakes they go, and this is important for Fowler, but also look at Albanese. He's been pushed backwards and backwards even further to the rest of his G3 Silver peers as they come on through. Jack Parker, they're defending versus Bennyworth for P3 in the G3 Silver class. Of course, caught out on this corner on the opening race today. He won't want to have that happen twice in succession, and as they make the way down towards turn 1 once again, well, all four drivers right now pushing on here as they roar the way through. Our timing tower gets updated and corrected. It seems to be a timing issue on the circuit with the sensors that are around the circuit. But speaking of issues here, well, Barker will be having an issue if Ben Bennyworth comes all the way out the inside, and Bennyworth goes for it there. Mark Sykes also trying to pick his way through the LMP2 machine. He wants to get clear of these GT3s. Well, they're all trying to navigate it as safely as possible as they come through 3 and up into 4, and Bennyworth there steering wheel clear. Meanwhile, the G3 bronze leader of Ingot Elm Club making great progress at the start of this race, gaining plenty of places and now pressing on as he comes on through the chicane here ahead of Jordan Baybois. But as they make their way up towards turn at number 7, well, we do get a brief breather in which to understand what happened to Jones and Danes on the opening lap, and here's a replay. As they came on through at what was turns 8 and 9, Jones there losing the rear slightly, oh goodness me, and then Yonland in contact with Jones, and Dane just simply taking off the circuit there in order to take a void in action, of both drivers ended up on the oval asphalt as they made the way on through, and Danes will caught in the grassy pattern to very gradually bring himself back onto the racing circuit, and the Next Gen Racing pink driver, they're just proving to take evasive action, and it wasn't enough to keep it safe. But as we do return to the live pictures here, I think we've got even more happening at the moment as we do have parked off circuit there. That's Nigel Stock just waiting to rejoin, but I think there's a bit more to it than meets the eye, as we're also hearing there's been an incident for RT Jackson Continental in the GT3 bronze class in what is lap number 3, and also a bit of a further incident for Craig Jones and Nigel Stock, and we'll find out all about that and more very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. But focus on our live pictures at the moment. You can see Ingot Elm Club here, the focus of our cameraman's attention. The leader of the GT3 bronze class continues to be tucked in behind teammate from Team Slow-Mo of Espresso Bean, albeit in the G3 Silver class. But the main danger man right now is the privateer Jordan Baybois, who is looking to try and cut his way through as soon as possible. But as they come through turn number 4 and head up towards the chicane once again, it's a long race here. We're only 5 minutes in, and there's plenty more to come before it's over. And all of our drivers will know that right now. They need to measure this on pace. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And meanwhile, looking up to the front of the field, Jamie Dorey, who leads here, well, he still only has a 9/10 of a second advantage over Gaz Williams, the Next Gen Racing orange driver. Of course, very good friends with the Next Gen Racing purple driver off circuit. But given the racing for sister teams here, they're just as much rivals as they are friends on track as they come on through turns 4 into 5, 6. And as they come right on through, Benjamin McCluskey also there, keeping them honest as they head on down the back straight. And up towards turn at number 7. Meanwhile, we look to Gaz Williams up the inside here of Paul Scott, but he overcooks it under braking, and therefore as he tries to defend on the rejoin into turn 13, all we find in the end is that Paul Scott will go around the outside there to retake the P3 in the G3 Silver class, but Meacham there just a little bit over eager under braking, and the car sliding away from him on the retardation into turn 12. But of course now he's got another opportunity here as he makes his way up to speed and down towards turn 1. We're heading this bit of retirement for Stefan Albanese. Meanwhile, in the G3 Silver class, he's listed as P6 there, but retired. Meanwhile, going on the brakes there, coming in very hot. He's got Almclub, and I think having to take evasive action. I think he missed his brake point and then had to duck to the inside to avoid making contact to teammate Rien. But now look at this as we ride on board the gearbox. This mistake has cost him ever so dear as Jordan Baywa all over the back of him, and Sean Scooter there as well as they come through turn number 4 and up towards the back straight they go. They power through the 5-6 chicane, and now Baywa will have all the momentum he needs it. He's got the toe. Which way is he going to look? He looks to the inside as they make the way down. Onto the brakes they go. Baywa on the inside, Almclub on the outside. And as they break the way in, Baywa takes the position. He parks on apex. He takes all the counter-attack away from Almclub. And Baywa is into lead the GT3 bronze class. Sean Scooter behind, meanwhile, staying with them as they make the way through turn 10 and around towards turn number 12. And I think Scooter here trying to play the long game, see if he can save some fuel rather than battle with them at the moment. And you can understand entirely why here. If he can save a lap's worth of fuel and go a little bit longer, alternatively, just spend less time in the pits, it will benefit him in the long run and could see him jump the pair of them as they head into turn 13. The only thing that he'll have to worry about now is whether Baywa can just simply break away, given the fact he's been one of the fastest drivers here today in the G3 bronze class as they head on down the round to the next lap. But meanwhile, speaking of trying to break away here, side-by-side action between Chris Daines and Paul Williams there, between the P5 driving the LMDH Gold class and the lead of the LMDH Silver. Daines going around the outside at turn 12, getting it done, and Paul Williams went to hold track position, so that way he's able to keep a driver as a buffer between himself and teammate Jochen Siegert, who's inching ever closer. But as they make the way down towards turn at number 1 once again, you can see now the status quo is resumed, and it is for Jochen Siegert to try and go on the offensive versus Paul Williams as they come on to the next lap. We're going through turns 1 and 2 and up towards 3, 4 very shortly. Well, a little bit further down the order, we can see Daniel Stimon here in the GT3 at bronze P5 position, chased after Jordan Baywa. In fact, Baywa's just dropped out the lead of the GT3 bronze class, only moments to go, and how on earth has that happened? Well, we're going to have a replay very shortly, and we'll be able to tell you. In fact, here's the replay. Under braking here and a bit of contact on the rear of his car from what was Ingot Almclub, and was they made the way to turn 2. Baywa, they're just coming a bit hot on the apex curve of turn 2, and the car sliding on around. Well, a little bit of a hot-headed moment. You can completely understand why, though. I think I would have done the same in his shoes in terms of wanting to come back, but they're slowing the car quite aggressively on the apex curve, and these curves do not provide as much grip as the actual tarmac itself, and Baywa losing out as a result, but he's got plenty of time still to go, and his next target then will be Sean Scooter as we return it to the live pictures. So you can see there Scooter just a little bit further up the road by comparison, and Elwyn Sykes has come out of nowhere into P2 in the G3 bronze class. Now we're not quite sure how that's happened in the meantime, but it has happened, and the racing team Astra driver here we're now 4 seconds off of Almclub and trying to close up. As meanwhile there's an instant for Russell Fowler. We see that in the rear of the picture, Fowler into the wall there at turn number 14, and unfortunately eSports driver in a nasty moment, and well, that is not going to do his racing aspirations any good, because now he'll be suffering from significant front right damage. That's not going to be just aero damage, it will likely also be suspension damage. But meanwhile, going from one driver's race is damage due to contact to a wall, to one driver's race who may be damaged because he's being passed. Paul Scott here with Gaz Williams going inside to outside through turn 7 and 8, and Meacham gains another position as he moves up into P2 of the G3 Silver class. Classic overtaking to turn 7. Paul Scott made it work for it all the way to the chicane, but in the end he had to back off Did Scott in order to be able to preserve the one line through the chicane as they make the way up towards turn 12. You can see that Benjamin McCluskey being caught up by Chris Daines, and McCluskey wants them to get a move on as they make the way into turn 13. The GT3 drives go round to the outside there. Daines gets boxed in by what is Gaz Williams there. There's nothing he can do. That's the way the run of the road goes. But as they make the way onto the next lap, Paul Scott keeping his sights firmly on Meacham with Jack Barker only a further 0.8 of a second behind here. It's definitely heated up in the battle to be on the podium with the G3 bronze class, the G3 silver class we should say today. And whilst all this is happening, meanwhile in the G3 gold class, for NXTGEN Dorey for Team Slow-Mo, well right now he's got Garrett Gardner and Eric Benson behind him. Benson of course the fastest of the trio in terms of 1 lap pace and also in the sprint we've seen. But Gardner looking for the move here versus Dorey. Dorey defends the inside. They've got one of the LMDHs going past us. Jamie Dorey, your LMDH Gold leader. And Dorey defends here as they make the way on through and up towards turn number 10. But as the trio make the way back together here, we jump on board with Eric Benson in the P3 machine for Team Slow-Mo. And the Norwegian right now all over the back of his rivals. But Benson's got to time this. He needs to think about when's the right time to strike, because he's got Gaz Williams and Benjamin McCluskey only a second behind him. And we're going to see Williams very shortly come on through. It won't be here. He'll be on the run out of 14. And we'll just keep your eyes peeled to most likely what will be the inside or the right hand side of these guys as they come out of the corner. Benson will be wary and ready for it. In fact, he'll be on the left hand side here as they all come on out as they power their way on through. Well, Williams does make his way on around. In fact, he's on the right of the picture. We got it right the first time. And there is also Woody Danes, also Jonan's coming up very shortly. But as they battle their way down towards turn 1, you can see there Dorey trying to serpentine the car, trying to take away the toe for Gardner. But as they all hit the way onto the brakes there to turn number 1, well, Benson just being cognizant of the fact he's got the other classes drivers still coming on through and around, and therefore not trying to push the tempo too hard. He's playing the long game here, is the Team Slow-Mo driver. He wants this win through strategy first and foremost. But meanwhile, looking back up the road, McCluskey versus Danes. McCluskey holding on versus Danes as they make the way out of the chicane and down towards 7 on the back straight they go. And will these two, it's like they never missed each other as they come into the left-hander here. We've been waiting for this to resume again, and right now it's in its prime. And with the fact they have got just in front of Gaz Williams and they are continuing to find traffic, well now they won't be finding traffic for a little while as the traffic has subsided for a brief moment. But as they come through turn 11 and down towards 12 with McCluskey here, he's going to pick, will he defend or will he leave the door open? Danes comes in, oh, and he goes over the top of the brakes there. The rear locks up and Danes goes on around, and the car just simply could not handle the direction change and also the braking in at the same time. And the Danishman has got it wrong there. He drops the P5 in class, and now he's got to try and pick his way back up through the order. As you can see, Magda Jonlund now ahead of him by 1.5 seconds as they make the way onto another lap. But meanwhile, we look to the GT3 Gold lead that's just coming up behind all of this, and you can see here, meanwhile, that we all can see and Paul Williams both go to the inside. Gavin Gardner looks to the inside as well here. He's trying to go for the win in the class and go for it early on by taking the position and running away side by side through turn 1. Meanwhile, as they come to 2, again Gardner has to back out. He's all over the back of Dorey there, but he just cannot find a way to get it done. It looks as though for all the might he may huff and puff with regards to that Ferrari straight line performance when it comes to breaking into the corners, that's where the Audi just has that final 5% of advantage. And therefore for Gardner now, the next gen racing peak driver, he's got to think to plan B. If he can't get it done, is it worth continuing to try and push the issue, or is it worth trying to save on strategy? Well, he's going to go again here into turn 7, but notice just how he's not able to get fully alongside on the braking. And on that tighter line, we're being a right angled left hand corner, you do have to brake early on that inside line to make the apex, otherwise the car will just simply glide away under braking. And as they make the way out towards turn number 12, well, Gardner now in the Team Slow-Mo sandwich. It's got the next gen racing peak filler, and I think he wants to get out of it sooner rather than later as they make the way towards the end of this lap. Meanwhile, 5 seconds back, only Martin York here in P4 and a lonely P4 in the 337 team at Slow-Mo Ferrari. He'll be thinking about how he can potentially get into that lead battle if he can, with Russell Fowler in P5 there, a lap down due to damage on the car. And in fact, Fowler just a bit further up the road, making his way across the timeline. But meanwhile, as these guys continue to press on, we look to Daniel Stimmon, meanwhile in P5 for Russell's Universal Robots and hunting down Elwin Sykes. And Elwin Sykes at one point in P2 in the G3 bronze class and has fallen back, albeit it's Ingar Almklov is broken away at the front of the class with all the drama and battling that's been ongoing. And as our drivers come on through, we're also seeing that Jack Barker has dropped to P5 in the GT3 Silver class due to an incident on circuit, and we'll try to find out what exactly happened there shortly as our drivers come towards the end of another lap in the GT3 Bronze class. But as they power their way on through, we look to the LMDH Silver leaders here. Jochen Siegert for Speed 9 Esports ahead of Paul Williams as they come on through. What is their turn at number 10? You can see just steering clear. RT Chatsconstantu just making sure to respect the LMDH as they come up towards turn at number 12. And as they make their way through the right hand, no change at the moment for the drivers, albeit for Jochen Siegert, he's got the building pressure of Williams behind. Albeit I think these two both trying to save as much battery and fuel as they can and playing the long game. They're both very strategic drivers, and we know that Jochen Siegert more of a strategy driver than a pace driver. Williams having a bit more of a balance between the two. And as they head down towards turn number 1, well, Williams just waiting there in the wings and staying only 6.5 tenths off, if that, under braking, closing up. I think that goes to show you that Williams really trying to control the pace of this race behind his teammate and then looking to make the jump in the pit lane. But as they make their way up towards turn number 4, we look here to make the Yonland, and as we jump on board the gearbox here, the Team Slow-Mo black driver, behind him is Chris Daines, the NXTGEN Racing pink driver, who at one point battling for the lead of the class here, albeit that early instant cost him dear, and then another mistake, see him drop back behind Yonland as they head through turns 8 and 9. Well, there's only one line through here, and Daines will need to be wary of that, albeit Yonland defending a little bit to turn to the very tight entry line. They're not quite comfortable running the racing line, and as they make the way through 11, well, Daines is going to have the run before they get to the braking zone for 12. Up the inside he goes, and this time Daines gets it done. No drama under braking into turn 12 and moves up into P4 in the LMDH Gold class, but still plenty to come. And Yonland right now, whilst he may be dropping out of it in terms of pace at this point of the race, he can still bring this on home, and you never know what could lie in store for the Norwegian in terms of a podium should the strategy work out. But as he heads down towards turn 1, meanwhile we look to Gaz Williams, your race leader, not quite, as we see Jamie Dorey there. We thought we'd lost him for a brief moment. It does seem to be connectivity issues there. In fact, he does make the moves as Gaz Williams around Jamie Dorey, with Dorey there intermittently disappearing and reappearing due to connectivity issues. But Gaz Williams takes the lead of the class there in odd fashion, gets it up for NXTGEN Racing purple. I think he might have been worried there whether Dorey was going to phase back into existence right in front of him. But as they head through turns 8 and 9, well, right now it's for McCluskey, who heads into turn number 10. In fact, I think Jamie Dorey's got a problem because he makes his way into turn number 10. We lose him once again, and for Jamie Dorey, this could be a sign of something that is going to bring a premature end to his race. Hopefully it's not, but it's not good news. Meanwhile, we look back to the battle for the GT3 Gold lead, and with Reece Frederick, we can see at Frederick's Extensible Dorey, the Team Slow-Mo keeping Gavin Gardner and Eric Benson still at bay, but looking behind them, and you'll notice that you do have your LMP2 leaders of what is Kevin Stringer and Barrie Jarman close together behind. They're trying to pick their way through this battle. Jarman looks up the inside, but in the end only to bleed off the speed and make sure he's not breaking into dirty. And there's a small luck up there for Jarman. But as they make their way into turns 8 and 9 here, they're going to try and go outside to inside through the chicane amongst the GT3s. Well, that is going to be very tricky, and in the end they all settle down. But you can see here both of the LMP2 drivers trying to make a move on. Meanwhile, we've got drama in the GT3 Silver class as Meacham has gone round there at turn number 7, and also Ingot Almklov has dropped out the lead of the GT3 Bronze class with a spin at the chicane, and that's turns 5 and 6. You don't normally see an error from a driver there. I think there's a bit more to the stories than Meacham and Almklov together. What it means for the first time today, Sean Scudder takes the lead of the GT3 Bronze class of Racing Team Astra as he makes his way up towards turn number 12. As he comes powering on through here, he'll know that any moment things could swing another way, and Jordan Babe White is looking very fast at the moment in terms of one lap pace and the consistency that comes with it. So the Racing Team Astra driver's got his work cut out for him. As you can see, Babe White in the rear of the picture there as we're now focusing on him, and Elwin Sykes not too far off either, so it could go any which way for the GT3 Bronze drivers here as we get closer and closer to the 20-minute mark, and that strategy may be starting to loom. Now we may see the pit stops run a little bit deeper into this race. I was speaking to a couple of drivers down in the paddock before tonight, and they were saying that fuel consumption at Indianapolis seems to be relatively low compared to what we've seen all season, and therefore we may see some drivers try to pull the strategy up to what would be pitted around the 30-minute mark, if not longer, in order to break the race into 2 equal halves, which is always comfortable if you could do that. It gives you a little bit more of a breather in terms of the fact you're not overloading a particular stint with racetrack time. But as we see Babel coming through turn number 4 and making his way onto the back straight shortly, we get an opportunity to take a look back at what exactly happened to Ingot Almklov from the lead of the GT3 Bronze class. When we're seeing at the aftermath here, but there was more to it before that. In fact, as we get a bit of another replay I think this may be it, as he came through turn number 4. Goes a little bit deep, gets the power, and the car just lets go there. You could see, I think he was trying to gauge whether the rear was going to come round or not, and in the end, the rear just let go. And for Almklov, a nightmare moment. He's brought it back together, avoided the wall, but it's a long way off circuit, and he gradually rejoined, but has lost out a lot. Meanwhile, for Gaz Williams, only further up the road when it happened for Almklov, onto the brakes. Meacham went into turn number 7, hard on the brakes, and the rear of the car just slid. A small bit of brake being used on apex, interestingly. Well, not common there. I think he perhaps felt he carried a bit too much speed, but the privateer getting it wrong. Paul Scott came on through, and it's Ben Bennyworth who leads in the GT3 Silver class. And speaking of Ben Bennyworth, here he is right now, 3 seconds clear of Paul Scott. You'll see Paul Scott in the rear of the picture briefly there, and the privateer right now just running on through in the Williams Martini. In fact, just in the old Martini, the Porsche Martini colours of the old ages. He makes his way down towards turn number 7 here, and the number 96 driver feeling comfortable at the moment. And it's been some time since we've seen him on the top step. Could this potentially be his day today? But as he comes through turns 8 and 9, he won't be thinking about that right now. He'll be putting that thought as far out of his mind as possible. He'll be focused on just keeping it together and keeping it calm. As he comes through turn 11 and into 12, meanwhile in the LMDH Silver class, we can see here Paul Williams and Jochen Siegert still close together, still battling hard for position, and both drivers here pressing one another on, but Paul Williams getting back ahead of Jochen Siegert, and now with track authority, I wonder if he feels so he can manage the pace of this race once again as he heads into turn 12 in front of Jamie Dorey there with continued technical issues, and I think Dorey definitely losing out as time goes on. He's dropped all the way back to P5 and has fallen off of the leader's pace, and in fact quite in these recent laps, Jamie Dorey's last lap a 21.48. Meanwhile, for comparison, Gaz Williams is leading a lap on that last one of 15.07, so Dorey losing 6 seconds a lap, and on average about 4 seconds as we look back through the lap charts. And I wonder if Dorey right now is trying to just nurse the problem and get the car home. Meanwhile, as this all continues, we're hearing that Ingot Almklow's been involved in another incident. In fact, as we look to him again, well, off circuit, they're having a brief excursion, and that is Jorge Santos, who's now looking for the opportunity to pass Almklow as they make their way out of 13 and into 14. But I think there, the Ferrari driver just got it back together in time, and as they head up towards turn number 1, well, the T-Side leftovers driver still pressed on and looking for opportunities. But meanwhile, we've had Sean Scudder get it wrong, and that's at turn 4. The Racing Team Astro driver's gone around. He tries to bring back together. The car slides, and you can see there Daniel Stimmel coming on through to take P3 in the GT3 bronze class. What happened to Sean Scudder? Well, this is coming out of turn 2 into 3, making his way up onto the braking zone here for the right-hander of 4. Gets it hooked up, you can see it, tries to turn, overturns the car, and the rear just slides loose, and then takes the car off circuit and gradually brings it around on the grass there. And Jordan Benoit has returned it to the lead of the, oh goodness me, and we look back, we go away from one man, and Sean Scudder on his roof there. Well, I'm not sure how that's happened, but that's the last thing we wanted to see, and I think we may be able to find out, but that is not what we expected whatsoever. In fact, we do have a replay coming up here. Now heading into turn 7 at this point. Oh, goodness me, and Scudder hitting the curb. Well, we don't normally expect that, but the curb absolutely sending the car into the stratosphere on the front left tyre. And, well, for Scudder, that's his race in ruin there as we return to live pictures. And Jordan Benoit now leading the G3 bronze class. And I don't think he's going to quite believe how this is all played out. I think when he passed Scudder on circuit, he may have done a double take out of his cockpit window for the simple reason the last thing we expected, we said those curbs were high. We did not mean they were high enough to send a car on its roof, particularly in the GT3 class, but it's happened, and well, Scudder's in the pit lane, all okay, hopefully, from what I'm hearing, but right now, his race definitely not the way he's wanted it to go. Meanwhile, Benoit's back into the lead of the class here, and I think he'll be thinking to himself, right, just don't do anything silly, he just needs to keep his head down. But meanwhile, speaking of smart things, Garen Gardner into the pit lane here from what was at the time P2 in the GT3 Gold class. He's coming in with Eric Benson, a long way down, albeit I think Benson was the first to take a pit stop in the class, unless I'm mistaken. In fact, he was. So therefore, right now, it all comes down to where Benson's picked the right time to take the pit stop as Gardner heads towards his pit box. Meanwhile, a little bit further down the road, Here is Eric Benson looking up the inside of Santos and just trying to gain track position here, and the team slow-mo driver knows he's got to go. He has got to push and use this time as essentially qualifying laps if he wants to try and beat Gavin Gardner on circuit. If not, he'll find himself coming out behind, and meanwhile for NXTGEN Dorey can just simply lead the G3 Gold class and look at extending his stints. They're switching the strategies and they're splitting them at team slow-mo and trying to find a way to get their drivers P1, P2 ahead of Gavin Gardner in the G3 Gold class, as meanwhile Benson there having to let on through pretty much the majority of the leaders in the LMDH Gold category. That was Williams, McCluskey and Will Danes a little bit further back. In fact, that was Chris Danes as well, we should clarify. But as the drivers coming around, we do look to the MDH Gold drivers, and we can see here Gaz Williams leading the trio, as there is Gavin Gardner coming out of the pit lane. He's got out ahead there of Eric Benson. That confirms our suspicions that Gardner's got it done. And Gardner retakes P2, and Benson now what is effectively, as we're to understand it, 4 seconds behind. That gap has opened up. Meanwhile, for NXTGEN Dorey into the pit lane from the leader of the G3 Gold class. I look out my commentary booth window, and as Williams here continues to lead ahead of McCluskey and Danes, well, McCluskey here finds himself in that position, that rock and a hard place, much like Gardner in the G3 Gold class. When does he choose to pit here? Does he feel comfortable running in amongst the group, or does he decide enough's enough and he throws the strategy in and reveals his hand? Because we are getting closer to the 30-minute mark. We're seeing our drivers now really starting to pit in earnest. We're 25 to 26 minutes complete when they're making those pit stops. And in the G3 Silver class, we see Ben Bennyworth and Paul Scott coming in. Baz Beecher back into lead of the Silver class, albeit we have to keep in mind it's dropped down the order will have cost him a significant amount of time, and also he may have used a bit more fuel in order to try and make up for lost time. But as we look to McCluskey coming on around here, and Danes just off of him, well, there is Sean Scooter making his way on through. Daniel Stillman, you're leading the GT3 Bronze class up the road, but meanwhile Stensbo Dorey making his way out to the pit lane here very gradually. It's an incredibly long pit lane. Meanwhile, where is Gavin Gardner? Here is Gardner headed on down. I think Stensbo Dorey is going to be more than safe, or is he? There's Gardner in the rear of the picture. This gives you perspective as the team slow-mo drive gets itself up to speed, and Gardner comes on through to take the lead of the GT3 Gold class effective as they make the way out. He just about creeps ahead with Dorey. They're having a faster run through turn 1 as it's the pit lane exits north, but Gardner's got it done there only by 2 tenths in the end. What a brilliant piece of strategy, and now the NXTGEN Racing Pink driver is going to have the unenviable task of keeping Dorey behind him for the remainder of this race. As they head up towards turn number 7, because the G3 Gold leader at the race just come into the pit lane is Ole Martin Mjuk, but he will drop back behind the top 3 as we're to understand it based on relatives. But Gardner goes a little bit deep into turn 7. The rear of the car started to slide loose. He's got to be careful. He can't afford to make any mistakes here. He's got to put the pressure on the driver behind to make the mistakes rather than be the one who's pressuring himself. And Stensbo Dorey here will know now that he's got to find that extra couple of attempts if he wants to get the move done, because it's not worked out on circuit. It's all switched to the pit lane. But as they make the way to turn 12, between them is Magna Yonland, the team slow-mo driver there in the LMDH Gold class, who's trying to break away from Jamie Dorey as they head out of 13 and on to the next lap via turn 14. Dorey there just simply steering clear of the LMDH machines as they make the way onwards towards the timing line. But as they come across the line, there's your confirmation, ladies and gentlemen, that Gardner is now your G3 Gold leader as Ole Martin Mjuk begins to leave the pit lane. But as they make the way on down, meanwhile into the pit lane comes up Barrie Jarman and also Kevin Stringer from the lead of the LMP2 class. Mark Sykes still out there on circuit, albeit a lap behind, and Nigel Stock 2 laps down, and both drivers having a difficult start to their races. As they head on through here, meanwhile we look back to Nigel Stock. You can see they're picking his way on past Jorge Santos, and well, for Stock it's all about just getting to the end and getting points on with every point critical in this class of 4 drivers. As he powers his way down the back straight, well, for Nigel Stock at the moment, it's also an opportunity to get all the more time behind the wheel of the car, and you never know what can happen over the race distance. We've got plenty of time to go, and we'll speak of things happening in the pit lane. Kevin Stringer re-emerges, your LMP2 leader, ahead of Barrie Jarman there by about what will be 3 seconds by the time they get themselves back up to speed. And well, for Stringer, he's out this pit stop, and now he's got to simply bring it on home. Well, the SCCR Sim Sports drivers will want that one too, but I think both of them will be eager to make a win, and Will Jarman in particular, because of course joining midway through the season, he hasn't had as many rounds to get points on the board, and he'll want to get some points on as soon as possible. But as he comes up through turn 4 there, finds Elwin Sykes on the outside, the G3 Bronze driver there in the M4. Well, as they make their way through the chicane, Jarman just waits and lets things go, but meanwhile parked up there and not moving. And that was RT Constantin, who's had a bit of an instant in the run out of turns 5 and 6. The car's just simply parked there, and we can find out exactly what happened. Well, the rear of the car snapped briefly, and as he made his way through the chicane, the rear completely went. Well, that was a very odd moment, a whack to the wall as well for the number 22 driver, and well, we didn't expect that whatsoever. We've had a few curbs catch drivers out there, but Constantin, the curve really unsettling the car, being able to get back underway and racing, but with the damage on the car, I think right now maybe considering a pit stop to do some repair work in the near future, as he's run quite wide at turn number 10 and rejoins at 12. As he makes his way down. Meanwhile, we look back to the leaders here, the LMDH Gold class. They're battling for position. Gaz Williams on the left of your picture, Chris Danes on the right of your picture. These two right now without a pit stop to their names so far. Danes goes outside to inside. It's a lovely move from Danes, but as they come on out, Benjamin McCluskey gets back into the fight, but Chris Danes with a brave move, but it tucks him in behind Jack Barker, but Barker there steers clear of the LMDH drivers. They come through the chicane, but Danes slightly offline. They're compromised as they make their way down the back straight. It's a three-way battle for a lead. Will be, I think, McCluskey here just in the spectator seat with the proverbial bucket of popcorn and thinking more about the long-term strategy rather than the short-term track position gain. But as they come through turn 7 and into 8, well, right now, Danes leads this race with 29 minutes to go. A pit stop still on the cards for all of our top 7. So that's our top 5 LMDH Gold drivers and also our 2 LMDH Silver drivers out on circuit. But they're all trying to push the fuel tanks to the hybrid as much as they possibly can here to get themselves as deep as possible into the race, and also to try and find the right time to make the aforementioned pit stop. But as they come through 13, will we see any of them defect into the pit lane this time? No, they all stay as they are. But as we jump aboard the gearbox here of Danes, you can see powering his way out of 14, using the full track width and then some. Meanwhile, Williams staying ever close. Mark Sykes peels over to the side there, the LMP2, and Williams this time just simply stays right. He doesn't look to try and push the tempo here into turn 1. He uses it as a fuel-saving opportunity, and McCluskey right there with him as they head up towards turn number 4. As they come on through, Jamie Dorey into the pit lane, the first of our leading LMDH machines to come into the pits for their one and only pit stop today. That is scheduled, and we could see more pit stops shortly as Danes there picks his way past Russell Fowler, and that's going to give him a buffer here as Williams now falls to 1 second back. Williams now to go defensive versus McCluskey. McCluskey on the left of your picture, looking to break round the outside here of Williams. Williams has got to decide, does he let Danes go or does he fight this hard as they make their way in towards turn 8 and 9. McCluskey on the inside to outside, and in the end Williams does not fight it as hard as perhaps he would have done if the race was coming to its end, for the simple reason they can't let Danes break away, and Danes already now 1.5 seconds clear, and with the pit stops emerging here, every second, every tenth, every thousandth is absolutely vital as they come on through and towards the end of this lap. As they make the way through turn 13, no sign of anybody peeling off once again. Meanwhile, as we look to the GT3 Gold lead battle, you can see Garrett Gardner holding on to the lead here by 7 tenths over Frederick Stensford Dorey. Meanwhile, a bit further back, Paul Scott up the inside there of Ole Martin Muir. This is a battle for overall position of P15. Not class position, with the GT3 Silver driver picking his way past the GT3 Gold driver. They are P2 and P4 in their respective classes, but as they come out of turn 4 and up towards 5-6, you can see how Gaz Meacham emerging ever closer here versus Paul Scott, and Meacham knowing that the gap between himself and Ben Bennyworth stands at 11 seconds. He is the fastest GT3 Silver driver on circuit by a considerable margin, on average 6 tenths of a second a lap at the pace that he's running at the moment when traffic does not interfere with his lap times. And for Gaz Meacham here, well, it's not the way he started off the race that he's going to be concerned about, it's about the way he ends it, and his target will be to end it on the top step, as Paul Scott's had a mistake at turn 10, and was he rejoined? That's 1 down for Meacham, and now his next target is Ben Bennyworth, but I think there's a bit more to it than meets the eye for Paul Scott's off. We'll try and get a replay of that very shortly. But meanwhile, whilst he's making his way up towards turn number 12, we do look back to the battle for the LMDH Gold lead that's just made its way on through past Scott, and we can see here Danes right now continuing on around the same for McCluskey, the same for Williams. Maglione leaving the pit lane as I look out my cockpit booth window, and as they head in towards the braking zone for turn 1. Well, they do have Jorge Santos there. Danes goes in on the brakes, and they all want to try and come on through here to make sure their respective races are being managed successfully, and will they all come through? Santos gives them all the room, and McCluskey here still trying to keep Williams at bay, and I think right now Williams maybe just turning it down a slight notch and saying to McCluskey, albeit through not trying to overtake him, that I'm focused more on strategy at this point, and we're still going. As they head up towards turn number 7 this time, Jochen there with the blue flags waving. Well, he'll still clear of the rest of his LMDH Gold peers as they come through turn number 7. And what is there? Ben Bennyworth, your GT3 Silver leader, will watch this all play out in front of him. And I think perhaps stargazing a little bit with regards to the fact the speed at which they fly on through. And the number 96 driver just needs to focus down here on Irvine with regards to his racing right now. He's in a leading position, but Gaz Williams is bringing that gap down. Last lap, Bennyworth at 26.11, Gaz Williams at 26.06. Not as much of a game for Meacham, but there was a lot of traffic for Meacham to have to intersect with. But come the end of this lap, will we see there be a change in that? There's no sign of a pit stop for our leading LMDH Gold drivers. We have had Jochen Siegert into the pit lane from P2 in the LMDH Silver class, so we know that pit stop is inching closer and closer, but we're waiting for somebody to pull the trigger and reveal their hand as Bennyworth crosses the timeline this time around at 27.080. Gaz Meacham, meanwhile, as he makes his way to the timeline, what's it going to be here for the Welshman? He comes on through. It's a 27 to beat. It's a 25.715. Meacham 1.3 seconds fast on that lap. He is ripping the time out of Bennyworth here. I think it's a question of when, not if, he'll get close enough to try and make a move towards the end of this race. Meanwhile, looking for him to lead in the G3 bronze class, Jordan Baybois as the Frenchman makes his way through the final corner here and onwards towards another lap with an advantage of 14 seconds over Daniel Stimman. With so many of the GT3 bronze classes drivers having a major instance in this feature race, but the one who's not is Stimman here as he comes on through to complete another lap. Or the Rossum Universal Robots driver from the Czech Republic, his focus will be on just keeping it consistent and once again bring on home a podium. He's made a good number of podiums this season for his raw consistency in the Mercedes, but he does have Elwyn Sykes behind, and Elwyn Sykes at the moment lapping similar pace to Stimman, and he'll want to keep it that way, if not outpace Sykes a little bit as they head on through to this next lap and onwards. But as they make the way onwards towards turn at number 4, meanwhile we do look back to the GT3 Gold lead battle as it heads down towards turn number 1, and the NXTGEN Racing Pink driver Garen Gardner continues to lead, albeit you can see they're being swarmed by the LMDH Gold drivers. Second place driver Frederick Stensbo Dorey absolutely surrounded right now by LMDH machines. One picks up the inside, that's McCluskey coming on through, and in the end Gardner also feeling the effects of being elbowed on out there at turn number 4, and well, Gardner having a really poor run as a result through 4. Dorey all over the back of his rival, and as they battle their way out the chicane, we drive on board here with Dorey as he makes his way on down, looks around the outside, onto the brakes he goes, hard on the anchors, and as they battle their way into the corner apex, Will tries to look round, but he can't quite find it. Gardner covers him off, but I don't think it's over yet as Dorey now will settle down behind, but he'll look for a cutback at turn number 10 to give him all the momentum he needs in the run to turn number 12. Gets a nice run, but there both drivers can make mistakes. Gardner makes a bigger mistake, and Dorey immediately made to go around the outside, and Gardner covers off the inside. They make their way down towards turn number 12 now. They're side by side on the brake, and Gardner has the authority to the apex. Dorey looks to cut back there, but Gardner parks on apex and says no can do for you as they come up towards turn number 13. And right now it looks like Gardner doing everything in his power to keep the momentum there, but he's struggling, and Dorey needs to seize on this. He's got to force the issue. He's got to keep making Gardner uncomfortable. If he can do so, then it will be a move that's on the cards as they make their way down towards turn number 1 here. Still 22 minutes to go. Gardner defends hard to the inside. Dorey pins him there and now looks around the outside, gets the nose ahead, but Gardner covers him off, and now as they come through 1 and 2, they stay as they are. Well, the thing is here, with Gardner having to race so oftenly off of racing line, he'll be putting excess wear and excess tyre into his tyres, we should say. As I mince my words, I mean to say he'll put excess wear and excess temperature into his tyre, not excess tyre into his temperature. And as they come through turns 5 and 6, with Dorey right now really continuing just to put the pressure on, and it's absolutely suffocating for Gardner. You have to imagine that after feeling comfortable for 7 tenths, just the way the traffic from the LMDH is caught up to him at turn number 4, it's taken away everything in terms of his advantage, and now he's got to get his composure back and try to open that gap back up. But as they make the way up towards turn 12 this time, Dorey not close enough to try and force the move, and Gardner keeping it clean out of 10, not running wide there. Mark Sykes closed up behind the LMP2 driver here, looking for an opportunity to make his way past the pair. And as they come into turn number 13, well, he'll get that opportunity in the run out of 14 down towards turn number 1 as they come through to complete this lap. Meanwhile, we look back to Gaz Meacham And its next target is only Martin Bjork, who's only half a second up the road as they head on down towards what is turn number 12 themselves. Onto the brakes they go, and well, Ben Bennyworth only 7 seconds away now. Meacham is continuing to close up a rate of knots, and it is definitely within sight. To put that in perspective, where is Bennyworth? He's here making his way across the timing line, but I think Bennyworth will be looking in his relative. He'll be told by the pit crew, and they will be warning him that Meacham is not showing any signs of abating in his charge here. We're on that previous lap for Bennyworth at 26.34, for Meacham at 25.72. An absolute roaring lap there for Meacham, and it is another few tenths taken out of the lead that Bennyworth has built up. Meanwhile, as we look from them back to Garrett Goddard versus Stensfeld Dorey, we jump aboard the gearbox here of the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo driver. Bit of a poor run there coming into it. You can see Dorey just more comfortable in that direction change as we hear that Chris Daines is into the pit lane from what was at the time the lead of the LMDH Gold class as they make their way through 11 into 12. And as they break the way down once again, gone there here, well, finding the natural line this time. A little bit of a lock up, and as they make the way to 13, it's very close as Dorey tries to get the door open. I think also Barrie Jarman just in front of the LMP2 may have had a slight lock up into the corner as well, and therefore everybody bunched up into the corner. But as they exit the way out, well, Dorey tried to pounce into turn 13, but it's the one corner you just cannot pounce at because it's such a tight apex. The driver in front of you has to make an absolute mistake of it in terms of going overly deep on running off the circuit. Otherwise, there's just no way for Ennish. You're fully alongside it in the exit at 12. But as they come through turns 1 and 2, Dorey once again all over the back of his counterpart. And as they make the way into turn number 4, well, he's shown that he can run him down the straights. He's shown that he can stay close through the corners. Now he's just got to find a way to outbrake him. But Gardner seemingly just able to find that extra yard of braking that keeps him safe for the time being. But heading on down towards turn number 7. Meanwhile, we look to your leader in the LMDH Gold class of Benjamin McCluskey, your leader on circuit, with Gaz Williams going another lap. So this is where the strategy has paid off for Williams. I think the fuel saving he's been doing will give him that longevity on this opening stint and give him effectively what we'd like to refer to as a sprint stint for his final stint of the day, where he will do, if he comes in the end of the next lap, it will be effectively 16 minutes on his second stint, so he can really attack the stint, go for it in the car and give it everything. But meanwhile, whilst he heads on around, Chris Daines comes out to what is turn number 10 and makes way to turn 12, coming on through the right handers. That's where Sean Scooter in front, who's recently recovered from a spin at turn 10. Whereas Daines looks up the inside, he comes in incredibly hot. Goodness me, Daines there coming in like a rocket, and in the end it has not benefited him at all as he's had to take to the grass and cut off completely turn at number 13. Well, there will be a slowdown with that, and that will cost Daines dear, as meanwhile McCluskey making his way out of the pit lane here. We can see Daines in the rear of the picture. In fact, Daines may have done enough here, although I think there will be some sort of slowdown that needs to be imparted given his run off circuit. But Daines gets back ahead of McCluskey, and as they make the way up to speed here, coming through 1 into 2, well, Next Gen Racing Pit Drive definitely not doing things the traditional way as far as we're concerned in terms of finding his way up through the traffic, but still he's pushing on here as rapidly as possible, makes his way past Eric Benson there, and well, right now Eric Benson by comparison is 7 seconds off the battle for the G3 Gold lead. In fact, almost 8.5 seconds, we should correct ourselves. And for Gardner and Dorey, it's all about them or nothing now. Meanwhile, the Gaz Meacham, as he's passed there by Nigel Stock, who continues his recovery drive, and Nigel Stock gaining overall position now on Meacham for the first time today. Well, the Welshman here in the 511 BMW M4 has got the gap down to 5.3 seconds on Ben Bennyworth in the battle for the GT3 Silver lead, and that gap is continuing to come down at an average rate of what is at least a second a lap. He has just taken another second out on the previous lap, and if Meacham could continue this, well, I think the move will be coming in the final 10 minutes, if not sooner. But meanwhile, we look from him to the leader of the LMP2 class, and that is Kevin Stringer here, who continues to hold position over Barrie Jarman, as meanwhile Mark Sykes comes out of the pit lane, albeit a lap down on the pair, and the SCCR Sim Sports pair making their way on around here, P1, P2, but still there's the question of who is going to be the winner in the class and who will be the runner-up in that 1-2 formation. And Barrie Jarman right now continues to chase down his teammate as they head up towards turn number 7 onto the brake shortly with 15 minutes to go come the end of this lap. And I think Jarman here definitely looking to set up a move for the remainder of the race, albeit taking his time here because he has got the time to work with. He does not need to rush this. Meanwhile, further back in the GT3 bronze class, Ingo Almklov, after that earlier incident which drops him all the way down the order, will now chase after Elwood Sykes, and Almklov in class, the fastest of all of his classmates, but minus Sean Scooter, who is down in P6, and with that, Scooter is effectively half a lap down on him as they make their way on around. Well, Almklov here pressing the advantage versus Elwin Sykes. The gap standing at around what is there 6/10, but Sykes makes a ham sandwich of turn number 12, goes overly deep, and as they make their way out of turn 13 and up towards 14, well, Almklov here staying close, albeit letting the LMDH Gold go around with Benjamin McCluskey. And as they head up towards turn number 1 this time, well, Gaz Williams still yet to come into the pit lane. The only driver in this race who is yet to pit. He's trying to go as long as possible with an advantage of 50.3 seconds, but it is descending. But Chris Daines is closing that gap down rapidly. So I wonder here whether Gaz Williams feels as though he's just trying to go as long as possible and therefore use the space on circuit and see if the fuel tank will go. Well, he's made me mark my words immediately because he's gone into the pit lane as I look out my commentary booth window. And in fact, his updates there on the timing tower that he's coming in as well. And now we'll see whether Chris Daines is able to come back out ahead. But meanwhile, in this battle for P3 in the G3 bronze class, Almklov all over the back of Elwin Sykes. They head on down towards turn number 7. Sykes defends the inside. The team slower leftover driver Almklov going around the outside. It's a battle on the brakes. They both coming into the apex. Almklov's given the space there, but he's given the bare minimum as they come into turn 8, and Sykes makes a successful defense as Almklov knows he's got the grip there to go around the outside, but he just needs to be a little bit further ahead of the initial braking zone to get it done. As they come out of 10 and up towards turn 12, they charge. Sykes to have a poor run off the corner. Almklov absolutely flying up through the gearbox into turn 12. They brake, but only one wide here for the time being as they come through the right-hander to complete the lap shortly. Meanwhile, Eric Benson being passed there by what is Nigel Stock, and Stock comes on through to say overall position. And in the pit lane stakes, well, between Chris Daines and what is Benjamin McCluskey and Gaz Williams, Daines then retakes the lead of the LMDH Gold class with Gaz Williams and McCluskey side by side on pit exit. And will Williams loses the position there by only a couple of hundreds as they make the way on round turn 2, but McCluskey retakes P2, and Williams now will need to get 2 moves down circuit if he wants to take the win here in the feature. It has not worked out for Williams, and it looks as though Daines right now absolutely flying off into the distance to try and make it back-to-back wins here today as they come into turn 7. As they break the way on through and around they go into the second chicane, of course with the traffic in front of them. One moment it could be an advantage for Daines, the next one he could find himself being caught right back up. But as they head out of 10 down towards 12, I mean, we look back to the battle for the GT3 Gold lead, and Garrett Garner here continues to hold advantage for NXTGEN Racing Pink over Team Slow-Mo, over Team Slow-Mo's what is Frederick Stensborg Dorey as they come through turns 8 and 9 and up towards 10. The two drivers here, of course, exchanging lap times continuously, literally within a tenth of one another, time and time again. But it does look as though Garner inching that gap back open. Meanwhile, Chris Daines, oh goodness me, and how on earth is that? But Daines has gone round on the start-finish straight. That's not where we normally see an incident, and we take a look back. Coming out the final corner, the rear started to let go. And in the end, just the rear left tyre there, taking to that small patch of grass, causing the car to let loose and just slide on the barrier. And for Chris Daines, after what was looking to be the perfectly executed strategy and race, now all lies in tatters, and with the fact that he is 10 seconds off of Williams and McCluskey, well, he's given himself 12 minutes to try and close that gap down and make 2 critical passes in order to take the win of this race. I think he may be able to close it down quite rapidly, but in terms of being able to actually make the moves, well, if Williams and McCluskey have got their aspirations intact, it will be that Daines stays right there behind them for the remainder of the race. But as we continue to look at these live pictures here, Daines right now trying to find his feet once again. Meanwhile, Gaz Williams has caught up to Ben Bennyworth faster than we expected, up the inside of Bennyworth for the GT3 Silver lead, and he gets it done there. And goodness me, on that last lap, Gaz Williams took a whole 2 seconds out of Bennyworth, and over the preceding laps, 1.5 seconds each lap. Well, that's why it's happened so rapidly. We thought it would happen inside the final 10 minutes, but it's happened just before that, and Gaz Williams absolutely rocked in around here in the M4 as he makes his way down towards turn number 7 again. And I think for Ben Bennyworth, as much as he would like to battle it, I think his focus is on simply finishing P2 here and making sure to get a plethora of points that will buffet his championship campaign. But but he's got to keep in mind that Paul Scott is gradually closing as well. Paul Scott only, 4.6 seconds back, and here is Paul Scott as he makes his way through the chicane with Sean Scooter in tow, and Scott is closing at a rapid rate of knots. That last lap he took 3 tenths out, and if he continues at this pace, he'll be there right at the end of the race, presuming he can up it to a couple more attempts. But meanwhile, looking for the GT3 Gold battle here for the lead. It's a hot run on the brakes there from NXTGEN Dorey. Up the inside, he gets the move done on Gavin Gardner. A bit of contact between the two of them, but I think there Dorey decided he had to go all in. He had to gamble and throw his chips at the scenario for the simple reason that Gardner otherwise would just simply out defend him each and every time. Well, Dorey's got it done, but now Gavin Gardner, of course, will look to come back. And as we ride on board here with the Ferrari driver, the V8 absolutely pounding his way up towards turn number 7. Dorey defends here. Gardner looks up the inside. Can't quite find him, but putting pressure on Dorey as they come through the apex and up towards turns 8 and 9 they go. It's the battle of the Ferrari V8 with its turbo, plus what is there, the Audi in the V10, and as they make the way up through turn number 10 and up towards turn number 12, well, a little bit of a wobble there for Gardner, a little bit of understeer for Dorey. Both drivers now pushing the tyre compound beyond its maximum usable life and seeing just how much they can get out of it as they head into the right-hander at turn number 12. Cutting the way over the curb in here, both drivers using all the track and plenty more of it as they come through the final major corner and head on towards the timeline. 9 minutes remaining, and this rivalry is showing no signs of abating as they come to the timeline, but Dorey getting a better run off at turn 13, but Gardner now with the Ferrari and the top end will start to close back up little by little as he does have it in got Almclough behind there. 8 tenths off, you can't see him, but he is in that reverse TV camera in the centre of Gavin Gardner's cockpit as they make their way through turns 1 and 2 ahead of his Elwin Sykes there, who will be blue flagged shortly, but Sykes of course won't want to lose too much time because he's got to worry about the fact that Almclough is trying to chase him down for P3 in the G3 bronze class. But as they come out on the right hander turn at number 4, meanwhile we look a little bit further up the road and it's Barrie Jarman who's made his way. That was Kevin Stringer for the lead of the LMP2 class, and as they cut their way up the inside of Russell Fowler, the GT3 Gold driver, we can take a look back at exactly how the move was made. As they made the way up towards turn number 12, Kevin Stringer there on the inside and taking it slowly, trying to pass Fowler, and Jarman just saw the door open and saw that his team was going slowly and took the place. No questions asked. A nice move there for Barrie Jarman and moves up into the lead of the class. Now we'll try to run it off into the distance. But as we return to the live pictures, we return to the battle for the G3 Gold lead as they come down into turn number 12. And we can see here Gardner versus Dorey. They stay as they are, but Gardner all over the back of his rival. Meanwhile, Paul Scott has found his way past what is Baz Meacher. I believe there's been another incident for Baz Meacher that's cost him very dear. And in fact, whilst this is all going on, you've got Almclough looking to go on the offensive for P3 in the G3 bronze class versus Elwin Sykes. He's got the run off at 14. He's got the inside line. I think this is going to be a formality unless Sykes can find a way to extend the brakes that BMW into the deep zone as they make their way into turn 1. Under brake and they go. Sykes tries to do it. He tries to defend outside to inside, and he does so as Almclough there can't quite press his advantage to its conclusion, and Sykes getting feisty here as they make their way through 3 into 4. Defends on the inside into turn 4 now. Almclough, of course, will try to go for the cutback, but overcooks it under brake in there. Both tries go deep, and Elwin Sykes putting up a defensive barrier here, and will to be fair with the time remaining, who can blame him as they head on down towards turn at number 7. And they've got nobody else behind them in terms of their class rivals in close proximity. But Almclough looks up the inside again here into the left-hander at 7. Sykes gives them the space, and Almclough there trying to get Sykes to make a mistake and overgo the braking zone. But in the end, Almclough just not able to get it done as we're in the Jochen Siegert had to come into the pit lane again for a second pit stop. Meanwhile, we've got even more drama going on here as Jack Barker's into P3. Baz Meacham has dropped into the pit lane. What on earth has happened to Baz Meacham? He's been involved in 2 incidents, and here's the first one on replay. Well, this was coming out of what was turn number 2 into 3 and 4. Onto the brakes of turn 4. He went, oh, goodness me, and contact there with, I believe, that's Jochen Siegert. And that would explain why Siegert had to come into the pit lane. And will both drivers then a nasty shunt to one another. And then a bit later on, what happened to Baz Meacham after that? We'll just into the pit lane, then the damage absolutely crippling. And you can see there on the right-hand side of the car as the camera pans on around, hopefully. I think the right suspension just giving way and into the wall there, meanwhile. Coming out of the final corner, one of the racing team Astra machines, I believe that may have been Sean Scooter who had a mistake. As we return to the live pictures now, Jack Barker back up to P3 for the G3 Silver class and made for racing. Meanwhile, Ben Bennyworth retaking the lead of the G3 Silver class, but the problem for Bennyworth is, look who's behind him, it's Paul Scott, and Scott on the inside immediately under braking it, and Paul Scott firing one down the inside and gets it done. He hits the target, and the NXTGEN Racing orange driver here in a dramatic day of racing on the feature race of the GT3 Silver class takes the lead with 5 minutes to go, but can he keep Bennyworth at bay here as they make the way out of turn 4 and up towards 7? Well, my gut feeling says yes, he can. Given the relative pace of the two of them over the last couple of laps, Paul Scott has had a couple of tenths of a second advantage each and every lap. But as they come down into turn 7, of course, he'll need to be wary of the prototype traffic that's coming on through. And that was your P2 driver in the LMP2 class, of Barrie Jarman, who has been passed, in fact, by what is Kevin Stringer, being passed a little bit earlier on. We're not quite sure how that's happened, but it has occurred. And as the drivers carry on through here, I believe it may have just been a battle between the two of them, and in the end, Stringer getting the upper hand. In fact, we can take a look back at exactly how the move was made. You may recall this was the battle for position where Jarman looked up the inside of Stringer into turn number 12, and as they came into 13, well, a little bit later on there, as they made their way down the start for this straight, you can see Barrie Jarman going slowly there, coming out of turn number 14, and Stringer just simply going round the outside and getting the return move done. So I'm not sure what that was all about, but Kevin Stringer retaking the position, and with it he's broken away. As we return to the live pictures, we see Paul Scott here already breaking away from Ben Bennyworth, and Bennyworth in fact really off the pace, 3.5 seconds off the pace that previous lap. I wonder if Bennyworth is nursing a tyre issue and is conscious of the fact the tyres may give way. Meanwhile, speaking of one driver here who will not be wanting to give away to climb back up the order, it's Gaz Williams up the inside of Espresso Rien, and the team slower leftovers Ferrari driver. They're going deep into turn 12, loses P4 in the G3 Silver class late in the day as he makes his way into turn number 14. And well, right now it's going to be a day of damage limitation for the 34 driver here, as it's just not been a circuit where the pace has come naturally to him. But meanwhile, as we look from our GT3s back up to the very front of the field, we can see here in the LMDH Gold class, now 3 seconds clear of Gaz Williams, Benjamin McCluskey for NXTGEN Racing Purple, really running off into the distance of this race. Albeit again, we have to keep in mind the amount of hybrid battery our drivers may still have to use versus what they've got saved up so far. And McCluskey here, 3 seconds clear. In fact, that gap opening up with Williams having to manage Jordan Baywhite, your G3 bronze leader, who was on the apex of the chicane as they came on through there, and Williams losing out a whole second in the run to turn number 7, and well, again, having to be patient and just let the GT3 take the line. Of course, the emphasis and the responsibility is on the faster class of machine to pass the slower class successfully, and for the slower class not to be unpredictable in terms of its racing line. And Williams now, I think, trying to consolidate this P2 with Chris Daines a whole further, what is 16 seconds behind. In fact, 15 seconds now, the timings have been updated, and for Williams here, it's a P2 finish unless McCluskey has a major error or finds traffic late on. But meanwhile, Ben Bennyworth into the pit lane. We wondered if there was an issue. It was a fuel issue. He hadn't got enough fuel to get to the end, and well, with that, as he makes his way back up to speed, Baz Meacham comes on through the final corner here. 2 minutes left on the clock. Bennyworth will re-emerge from the pit lane shortly, but will Meacham be able to clear him in time? Well, Bennyworth has cleared the exit line and now starting to get back up to speed. In fact, not quite yet. He's still trying to clear the exit line, and Baz Meacham jumps back to P3. And then an unexpected turn of results here. Jack Barker has moved up to P2 for major race in the G3 Silver class, and Paul Scott now just running off into the distance. 23.5 seconds clear, leads the G3 Silver class with only one more lap to turn in his case. But as he comes on through turn at number 13 here, the pressure's now on not to make an error when you've been leading at this point of the race. Of course, it is in your mind, one more lap to go, don't do anything silly. And well, speaking of a driver who also be feeling that, Frederick Dorey, after a quite aggressive move into turn 1, but it was the only way he could find a way to get through the armour of Gareth Gardner. He leads the G3 Gold class, but you can see Gardner right there with him as they come through turn number 7. Clips a bit too much apex curve there, and for Frederick Dorey, he'll lose 3 tenths immediately from that as they come through the chicane and up into turn number 10. They will have one more lap to go as Benjamin McCluskey's crossed the timeline. He goes on to his final lap. It'll be what is 47 laps for our LMDH drivers. For our LMP2s, it will be a grand total of what will be 45 laps. So there's contact between Dorey and Garner there as they made their way into turn number 12. Well, Garner going slowly and the two of them coming together. Goodness me, will Garner there with damage, and definitely damage which has hurt the car as he goes deep out of 13. Dorey's catching up here, and I think Garner maybe going slow off the corner to give the place back as they make the way through, but that was completely unexpected. And well, Eric Benson now is only a second behind as they make the way down. Behind him is, well, in fact, ahead of him is got Almklov. He'll want Almklov to steer clear as soon as possible because he'll want to try and go hunting after Gardner and Dorey right at the end. But goodness me, how that happened, we're not quite sure. We'll have to get a replay of that if we can. But the two drivers coming together. Meanwhile, whilst they head on through for their final lap, here's your overall race leader. He's on his final lap. He's going through the final two corners right now. And well, it has been a tricky one-time pick for Benjamin McCluskey. Not on the pace of Chris Daines, but he did need to be. His consistency shone through. And in the end of strategy that beat Gaz Williams. And as he comes to the line, Benjamin McCluskey takes the win for NXTGEN Racing Purple over on the LMDH Gold class. Ahead of Gaz Williams, who finishes P2 there for NXTGEN Racing Purple. The two teammates make it P1, P2. And then it will be Chris Daines, who shortly comes on through to round off the LMDH Gold podium. And with it, it's a NXTGEN Racing podium for the LMDH Gold class as he hits P3 there across the line. Manly Yonlin will come on through in the next 25 seconds, but meanwhile, your next driver to finish his race, your winner in the G3 bronze class, as he makes a brief bit of contact with the wall. Jordan Babar makes it another win in his account as he crosses the line there in brilliant fashion, and well, he finishes in the end well clear of his peers with your next class leader coming on through. Barrie Jarman there for SCCR Sim Sports. Oh goodness me, it's a knock to all right to the end, and Kevin Stringer for SCCR Sim Sports takes the win instead ahead of his teammate. I'm not exactly sure what's happened there, but there's cars all over the place on the start finish line. Frederick Stenswell with Dorey takes the win in the GT3 Gold class ahead of Gavin Gardner with Eric Benson just behind him, and then Paul Scott, who comes on out of the final corner. He'll cross the line at the same time Paul Williams does. Here are your winners in the LMDH Silver, in the G3 Silver class. It's Paul Williams for the LMDH Silver, and it is Paul Scott for NXTGEN Racing Orange in the G3 Silver class behind the Speed9 Esports driver. But what a dramatic end to the race, and we have got a lot to unpick in a very short period of time with everything that happened there. We'll come to the results very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, but I think first we need to take a look back at the battle between Gavin Gardner and Frederick Spencer Dorey. Well, this was, of course, the run down towards turn number 12 on their penultimate lap where they came together onto the brakes. They went, Gardner looked up the inside here and a bit heavy on the brakes, and well, he tried to do what Dorey did to him at turn 1 a few laps earlier, and I think both of them there with different expectations of where the other driver was going to be. Gardner gave the place back as he made his way through turn 14 and onto the start-finish line. But meanwhile, as we then take a look at what happened between Barrie Jarman and Kevin Stringer, well, as we look to the replay here, you'll see Stringer going slowly there as they made the way out of 12 and into 13 with the G3 Gold lead. And I think they wanted to cross the line in formation, but this is where things got out of hand, because you'll see that Jarman's had to go, and as they came through the final corner, well, Jarman crossing the line and trying as he might, and there was a bit of contact there with Dorey as they crossed the line, and that's what led to Stringer coming on through. Well, I think there, as much as the SCCR Sim Sports drivers wanted to come through side by side in formation, and each of you may recall in a similar fashion across the line like Ferrari in 2002 in the Formula 1 Grand Prix of Rubens Barrichello and Kevin Stringer. In the end, the G3 Gold lead battle came up behind them and will upset the slate. But as we return to live pictures, our drivers make their way into the pit lane. Definitely an odd end to the race today, a dramatic one at that. But with all the racing complete, it's now time for us to take a look at those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. Well, we start off, of course, with the overall results. And we can see here that after 60 minutes of racing in the feature race of round 6 of the Next Gen Racing Proto GT3 Championship Season 2, here today in the state of Indiana in the US of A, Benjamin McCluskey taking the win there by 9.5 seconds to Next Gen Racing Purple over his teammate Gaz Williams to make it a Next Gen Racing Purple 1-2, and Chris Daines rounding off the overall and the LMDH Gold podium there for Next Gen Racing Pink to put all 3 Next Gen Racing drivers on the podium. Magnum Yonland P4 there for Team Slow-Mo Black, picking up the pieces towards the end of the race with Jamie Dorey's issues and Paul Williams in between the pair there. P5 for Speed9 Esports, bringing on home the win in the LMDH Silver class. Jochen Siegert behind Jamie Dorey in P7 there for Speed9 Esports, behind the Next Gen Racing Orange driver, with Kevin Stringer winning the LMP2 class race there for SCCR Simsports ahead of his teammate Barrie Jarman. They make it a 1-2 in class again with Mark Sykes P10 for Next Gen Racing Orange, and then best of the rest, your GT3 Gold winner there for Team Slow-Mo, Frederick Stensel Dorey, just pipping Gavin Garner to the post. Gavin Garner P12 just behind for Next Gen Racing Pink, and then Eric Benson recovering to P3 for Team Slow-Mo come the finish in the GT3 Gold class. And then coming on to our next set of podium finishers, Paul Scott, your G3 Silver winner, overall P15 for Next Gen Racing Orange, ahead of Nigel Stock, who was in between him and your runner-up in the GT3 Silver class of Jack Barker for Made for Racing. I don't think he'll quite believe the fact he's brought home a P2 in surprise circumstances, with Baz Meacham completing the GT3 Silver podium there, P18 overall. Continuing our way on down there, P19 overall, your GT3 Bronze winner of Jordan Babois in a brilliant recovery drive there. And again, going to show that it's all about how you finish, not how you start. And then Daniel Stim on the P22, the Rossum's Universal Robots driver, driving to a second place finish in the GT3 Bronze class, ahead of third place finisher Ingar Almcloth, P23 overall for Team Slow-Mo Leftovers. But in terms of all of our drivers finishing, we can see that we did, at the end of the day, have 3 retirements in this race. P28, Artie Chatsconstantu, the privateer for the GT3 Bronze class, ahead of Stefan Albanese for DRS Esport, and Craig Jones from SCCR Simsports being our third and final retiree, listed at P30. But now coming on to the individual class finishing positions. We start off with the LMDH Gold class, of course, and Benjamin McCluskey there, your winner, ahead of Gaz Williams and Chris Daines P3. Magnum Yonland there, not quite on the pace today, but still keeping his head down and bringing home some critical points in P4, ahead of Jamie Dorey, who finished a lap down the end with the technical issues for Next Gen Racing Orange, and Craig Jones with that unfortunate early retirement. And as we come on to the LMDH Silver class, we can see Paul Williams there taking the win for Speed9 Esports over his teammate Jochen Siegert after Siegert's late incident cost him dear in that battle for the win. And as we come on to the LMP2 class, we can see here Kevin Stringer bringing home the win by 9/10 in the end over his teammate Barrie Jarman, and SCCR Simsports 1-2 in the class, ahead of Next Gen Racing Orange's Mark Sykes, who finished 2 laps down in the end, but still nursing his injury and bringing the car on home. A great pair of finishes for Mark Sykes and some pivotal points that could play crucial later on in the championship. Nigel Stock, meanwhile, 4 laps down at the finish, P4 there, with his race practically out of contention come the very start, but still keeping his head down and finishing the race to get some critical points on the board. We then come on to the G3 Gold class, and we can see here in the first of our G3 classes, Frederick Stensel Dorey taking the win for Team Slow-Mo by 2/10, if that, at the end, over Next Gen Racing Pink's Gavin Gardner, with Eric Benson finishing behind them by 1.2 seconds there for Team Slow-Mo, and then Ole Martin Muir and Russell Fowler completing the standings, with Russell Fowler having a difficult feature race, a complete contrast to his fortunes in the sprint. And as we come on to the G3 Silver class, we can see Paul Scott there, the only GT3 Silver driver to go on to what was, in the end, the 42nd lap, ahead of Jack Barker and then Baz Meacham, the Next Gen Racing Orange driver there, back on flying form, and Ben Beddyworth P4 ahead of Espresso Riem, with Stefan Albanese with that early retirement finishing at P6. And then we come on to the G3 Bronze class, and we can see Jordan Babois taking the win for the privateer outfit, 15.1 seconds clear of Daniel Stimman, the Rossum's Universal Robots driver. Not quite in contention in race 1 of today, but definitely working it out in the consistency stakes in race number 2. And Stimman always somebody to watch out for in these feature races, with Ingar Almcloth from Team Slow-Mo Leftovers completing the podium, only 7/10 behind come the finish. And then Elwin Sykes from Racing Team Astra P4 ahead of Jorge Santos, Sean Scudder and Artie Chatsconstantu, with Sean Scudder, of course, had to be towed to the pit lane after ending up on his roof at turn 7 midway through the race, but doing well to recover to finish 2 laps down come the finish, and the unfortunate retirement Chatsconstantu blunting his charge back into the championship after a couple of rounds of absence. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our run of the race results. And now we get ready for our post-round interviews. We've definitely had two dramatic and exciting races. But what did our drivers have to say about it? We'll find out all that and more in just under 10 minutes' time. We'll be back shortly. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss these interviews. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then and ready for our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. And today we've had two of our drivers offer their time for a post-round interview. We'll be initially talking to our LMDH Gold driver in the #1 NXTGEN Racing Pink car of Chris Daines and hearing his perspective on what was a dominant sprint race and then a feature race that wasn't to be his victory, but instead a P3. And then we'll be hearing from our double winner in the GT3 bronze class, Jordan Benoit, the privateer, who made it look straightforward in the sprint race, albeit in the feature had to battle back up to the lead and never let go of it. But as we now do start hearing it from Chris Daines, well, of course, he joins me in the interview room now. And Chris, hopefully you should be able to talk this time. We have changed the permissions on the room. Just want to double check that first.
Yep, I can hear you.
Brilliant, perfect. So, Chris, thank you for joining us. And well, what a day it has been for yourself. Mixed fortunes in a way, a sprint where you looked absolutely unconquerable, but in the feature race, it all didn't quite seem to work out the way you had planned. How do you feel Indianapolis has been to you?
It's been really fun, to be fair. I'm not a fan of this track at all. I could try and avoid it, but multi-class racing around here is extremely hard. But overall, I'm pretty happy. It could have been a lot worse, I think, in the feature race. But overall, I'm really happy, to be honest.
With regards to how it played out in the qualifying session, firstly, and being happy, it looked as though it was a close qualifying session, but still you found a way to absolutely deliver a time. I have to ask, was there a bit more time out there, or was it a lap you were pleased with?
It was a lap I was pleased with, but there was a little bit of time out there. I think in sector 2, I lost probably a tenth in there. But other than that, it was a quality lap, which I was pretty happy with. 13.7, I think it was. I've not done a lap time like that before, so and the only time I saw that was Gaz done that in practice session. So yeah, I was really happy with that. I don't think I could have really actually got much more out of it.
Or indeed, putting yourself on pole by 1.5 tenths over Benjamin McCluskey. And of course, we saw back at Fuji all the way back in round 1, the infamous battle between yourself and McCluskey all the way around the circuit, whether it was in the sprint or the feature. I have to ask, when you saw it was McCluskey line up alongside yourself on the front row, did you think, oh God, here come the fireworks?
Yeah, I weren't going to make it easy for him, mate. Yes, you know, we're all teammates now, but you know, gloves are off when you're on the track. But you obviously show that respect. You have to, you know, show throughout the season. But it's, yeah, it was, it all came screaming back, like back in the Fuji days, that's for sure. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. And I have to ask before we come on to the race itself, we heard a lot from drivers in the build-up to tonight about this circuit effectively being an ice rink with such a low track temperature. Were you finding that across the sessions?
Well, you saw in the feature race I was struggling, but I think the thing is, with such cold temperatures, I think since I've done a lot of testing since the last update with different temperatures of track temperatures. Before the last update, you could go out in like 40, 50 degree heat and it would be like an ice rink. And the colder the temperatures, the quicker and the more grip there is. But since the last update, that has significantly changed. And I think people still think that the colder temperatures are genuinely quicker when actually they're not. It's more like real life now, where you need a bit of sun, you need a bit of heat in the actual track for it to grip up. So the colder temperatures are actually really tricky to get the car hooked up straight away. So on cold tires on a cold track, it's like an ice rink. So really tricky to keep, especially 700 horsepower and a battery behind you with just a little bit of rubber holding you on the floor to keep the wheels, you know, not spinning. So really tricky tonight.
Oh, indeed. Now, coming on to the racing itself, the sprint race, after a dogged start for yourself defending into turn #1, it did look as though for the early stages of the race, everybody was staying with you, and then you started to come up behind the GT3 class traffic, and you used that to your advantage. Just take us through that 20-minute race from your perspective, because it looked like it was one where you were mostly in control.
Yeah, I mean, I knew the four behind me, the three behind me, I knew had the same pace as me, so I knew it would be very close. It'd be within a second without traffic. So I knew I didn't have outright pace to pull away from them. So I thought, well, I'll just, you know, I knew they weren't going to do any silly moves. So as long as I kept hitting my braking points and the apexes, I knew it'd be okay. But as soon as that traffic came up, I felt like I managed it a bit better. I'm not quite sure how that. I have not seen the replay back yet to see how they managed it, but it seemed like they had I think McCluskey especially had a bit of bad luck with the traffic getting caught up. But I did try and pull a move on some of the GT3s where I knew he would then back up McCluskey behind me. So I was trying to plan where to put my car so I knew McCluskey couldn't follow me through. So that sort of worked to my advantage. And then yeah, I sort of pulled out a couple of seconds gap, which really helped.
Indeed, and playing it right, you ended up finishing the race with a good couple of seconds between yourself and your peers. I think it was 3 seconds at line, if not a little bit further than that. In fact, it was 5.6 seconds now. We get the updated time coming through. And then translating it into the feature race, we saw, and we've just seen in the background on the broadcast, it looked as though it was a good start, but then making your way up towards what was turn number 10, a wayward LMDH in front of you, and you had to navigate your way around it.
Yeah, it was a bit strange that one. I think Craig Jones got a bit loose. I think he went for a move on Jamie, which maybe his tyres weren't up. No one's tyres were up to temperature at that point, so it's always tough making a move like that. So I believe he may have lost a lot of grip on the rear end. So obviously going through the left-right kinks, he just got on the curb and the back end of his car stepped out. So he's hit the brakes and sort of caused a concertina effect behind us. But obviously he got hit, and I saw his car coming towards me, so I had no option other than just to drive off the circuit and then onto the old banking, which was a bit frustrating because obviously I lost a ton of time. So yeah, the start was really frustrating for me, to be honest, because I'd already locked my tyres up, so I knew that's taken a lot of life out of my tyres even before we got around the first lap.
And then from that point onwards, battling your way back through the order, we saw you really delivering the laps, making the moves left, right and centre where needed. But it always seemed as though you were having to battle against the conditions and indeed the tyre degradation.
Yeah, so again at that point, once with the LMDH especially, once you've locked those tyres up, you know you're going to end up struggling towards the end of the stint. And I knew that, so I thought I need to try and get up to these guys quickly again. And it was like I was 10 seconds behind, I think, and I managed to catch the leaders up again. And put in a fastest lap, which was my aim really, because that was the extra point. I got the extra point fastest lap in the last race and the pole, so 3 additional points on my championship today, which has really helped me. But obviously, again, catching these guys up, and then I made a move on Benji and just locked the rears up again, and I went through them. I went through them like a slice of cheese and 2 bits of bread. It was crazy how they didn't hit me, to be honest with you. And again, I come back on track, caught them back up, and I just started to feel my rear tyres were absolutely shot even before the first pit stop. So I knew I was really going to struggle, which I did.
And from that point onwards, it looked as though the race had gone from one where you're trying to charge down the leaders to more damage limitation. And just take us through, of course, over the 60 minutes, we've seen over the last couple of rounds just how significant the tyre degradation is, and also it needs to manage the battery of the car. But it really seems as though here at Indianapolis, it was trying to battle down a monster of a car with a circuit that wasn't going to be very forgiving whatsoever.
No, it's not forgiving at all. And like I said, I keep talking about the tyre wear, but it was really high round at Indy. There's a lot of fast banking corners. There's a lot of really heavy braking zones and tight corners for us as well. And because we don't have the downforce in the tight corners, we have to use a lot of steering lock, and it just takes a lot of life out of the tyres. And when you're doing 60 mile an hour coming out the corner and you put your foot down and you're spinning up those rears, it's so difficult not to. You're forever battling with the tyres. So this was a race of who could look after the tyres the best was going to end up winning. And I knew from when I took the lead after the pit stop, my tyres, when I came in the pit stop, my tyres had about 30% left on it, and I had another 20 minutes to do, and I thought, oh god, this is going to be a nightmare. And on the flat out banking coming towards the pit start straight, which is absolutely flat, the car just let go like I had a puncher and just spun me around, and that's when I knew the tyres were just so I was really lucky to come away with 3rd place, because I was limping around with what felt like I was on rims at the back, and I finished the race with just 9% of rubber on the tyres on the rear. So how I managed to even get it home in 3rd place, I actually don't know, to be honest.
Well, goodness me, it does sound so very rough on the tyres, and we did see a replay of that moment where you're coming onto the start for this straight where the car went around. But as you say, still finishing P3, you've made the best of the situation. And we're looking ahead now, we make our way to France next week for the circuit. The circuit does 24-hour Le Mans, or everyone knows it as Le Mans. How are you feeling for our 2nd endurance race round of the season?
I'm looking forward to this one. I've never driven this car around Le Mans before. It's going to be an absolute blast around there. Tyre wear shouldn't be an issue, which has pleased me because I'm pretty heavy on the old accelerator. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be Slipstream Fest, but it is going to be about managing fuel for this one, I think. So there's going to be a lot of fuel saving going on. And yeah, we'll just see how it goes from there. I think qualifying is not really going to make a huge difference if you qualify at the back or at the front. I think, again, it's going to be a fuel saving strategy rather than tyres for Le Mans. So definitely looking forward to this one.
Well, we look forward to seeing you take to the circuit in a week's time and how you get on. But just before we do let you go, Chris, as always, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, just a big shout out to you as always, Paul, doing a cracking job on commentary. As everyone's always said, it's some of the best commentary and the best broadcasting I think I've seen on iRacing, so it's always a pleasure to watch it back. Shout out to some of my colleagues as well, because they've tuned in to watch me race as well, so I know they'll be watching. So a big hello to them, and NXTGEN obviously for having me in their team and welcome me into their team. It's an absolute pleasure to drive for them, and absolutely fantastic leagues they're bringing to us, and including the new Clio Championship, which is coming up soon. So a new car comes out and NXTGEN is straight on it hosting leagues. So yeah, you couldn't ask for anything more from these guys.
Well, thank you for the kind words, Chris. And indeed, we have got plenty coming in the future, particularly the Clio Cup. You may even see me take to the tarmac in it rather than be in the commentary booth if they let me out.
Brilliant.
But with that, Chris, it's been a pleasure as always to have you in the interview room. Congratulations on your results today, and we look forward to seeing how you get on in France in a week's time.
Thanks a lot, Paul. Take it easy, mate. See you later.
All the best. So hearing there from Chris Daines, our LMDH Gold driver there. Very interested to hear his perspective, as naturally a driver, as he admits himself, normally does chew through the tyres quite aggressively on the LMDH machine. But really today, Indianapolis, a circuit which showed very little concern for our drivers' machines and their abilities. A circuit that was nice and cold, which meant they did have the grip available to them. And really it was a battle against the circuit and the car from start to finish, whether it be in the sprint, alternatively in the feature race. But still, able to survive it in the sprint and bring on home the win, using the traffic to his advantage as well after that brilliant pole lap, given the opportunity to run away with proceedings. But in the feature, that early incident really disturbed the momentum and the rhythm of Daines, and come at the conclusion, it was all about trying to fight back to P3, and in doing so, pick up some valuable points and also the fastest lap along the way, but not being able to hunt down the win after a mistake or two, plus also high tyre degradation really taking him out of the fight. And we saw the consequences of that degradation when he had that spin coming out of the final corner onto the start finish straight. A horrific spin. We didn't want to see that, and nobody ever wants to see something like that, but thankfully able to keep it mostly clear of the wall and carry on to the very end. And it'll be interesting to see exactly how Daines and the rest of the LMDH drivers get on next week at Le Mans, which is going to be a very different style of circuit. But as we now come on to our second and final interview of today, we go from the LMDH Gold class to the GT3 Bronze class. And we're going to be hearing from Jordan Bebois, our double winner in the class today and our regular winner in the class, if we're to look at the statistics, and picked up multiple wins up to this point in time. And as we do get ready to interview him, it'll be interesting to hear his perspective on the traffic and also the nature of the circuit, and also how picking up another double pair of wins goes towards his championship campaign. As he joins me now in the interview room, Jordan, bonjour to you, welcome, and well, your first time joining me in at the interview room. 2 wins on the bounce today. You must be feeling absolutely happy with your performance. To excuse us, ladies and gentlemen, I think we may have a slight technical issue at this time. I don't think Jordan's voice is coming through at the moment. We will try to get that resolved as soon as possible. We will be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Give us a brief moment. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, all technical issues have been sorted. I'm pleased to say I'm now joined by Jordan Beauvoir from the GT3 at bronze class. Jordan, congratulations on 2 wins in a row today. Another double set of wins in your campaign in the GT3 bronze class. You must be absolutely pleased with your performance.
Yes, hello everyone. So I'm French, sorry for my English if I make mistakes, of course. But I'm very happy to be here. I'm really happy I won both races today. It was really unexpected because I've never driven on Indianapolis before this race, and I've just bought the track a couple of days ago, and I just discovered the track a few days ago. So it was really unexpected, but I had a bad race last week in Spa, and I've made a big mistake. So I lost 3 positions and 10 championships point. So I was really angry at me. So I really wanted to have a better day today, and I did it. So I'm really happy.
Oh, indeed. And you did it in style as well, running away with proceedings in the sprint race and coming back to win the feature. But before we talk about those, let's talk about qualifying. In the end, in the qualifying session, taking what was, if my memory serves me correctly, pole position in the class in the end by quite the margin over your peers by 2 tenths over Sean Scudder. How was qualifying for you?
It was unexpected again because 2 days ago I was 1 second away from my qualifying time today, so I didn't expect to do something like 25.5, something like that. I did, I think, in qualifying, so it was really unexpected. And I saw the times for the other drivers. It was below the 26, so I had to do it, and I did it, but it was unexpected.
Well, it may have been unexpected, but you got it done. And then going into the sprint race, we saw that your rivals were looking fast off the line. Also, having to start on the final corner wasn't necessarily the way the GT3s wanted to start. Just take us through that battle with your rival, Sean Scudder, because it looked as though he was very close on pace.
Yes, he was, and he's not there every week, but I was happy to see him today. We were really close in pace with Sean and also with Amkloff. Sorry, I don't remember the first name. We were really close, and so I started first, of course, but it was very hard during the first laps, and the traffic really helped me because I think I managed the traffic maybe a little bit better than my than the 2 drivers behind me. So that really helped me to have 5 seconds to be 5 seconds before them. So and then I managed to keep that time. The traffic helped me actually.
Oh, indeed. Just talking about the traffic, of course, very tight circuit, tricky circuit of that. How do you negotiate the traffic as a GT3 driver?
Well, it's the same every week. I think it's really hard for GT3 drivers to spend the whole race eyes in the mirrors. LMP2 and the LMDH drivers are really aggressive, and I understand that. But for us, it's really tough, especially with a short track as today. So we spend our time in the mirror, I think.
Oh, indeed. Spending that time in the mirror, we saw you make it successfully to the end of the sprint race, the winner, and then coming on to the feature race, starting from the back and making your way up through the class quite rapidly, and then a couple of mistakes.
Yeah, starting from the back, I managed to overtake 2, 3, or 4 drivers in the first lap, which was really good. I think there was an accident or something. I don't really remember it, but I managed to be just behind Amkloff lap 2 or lap 3. I spent a couple laps behind him, but I knew I could overtake him, and I took the opportunity to overtake him really fast in the race. And then the lap after that, I saw him in my mirror, and maybe I brake a little bit early, or I don't know, and he touched me from the back. So I got off the track a little bit. I managed to come back on the track, and then I wanted to get my position back, and spun. Rookie mistake.
It was unfortunate, but you didn't let it stop you. And well, we saw over the whole race, not just you, but the whole class make mistakes. I have to ask, could you believe it when you retook the lead after seeing so many of your peers run away off into the distance and then just suddenly, well, end up, well, one of them on their roof? Sean Scooter ends up flipping the car.
Sorry, I think I didn't understand the question.
So I was going to say, could you believe that you had taken the lead later on when all of your rivals made mistakes?
Yeah, well, I didn't know where I was because I went to the pit stop and then I came out, and I didn't know my standing, my position, and then I discovered I was first, and so I figured it out that all the other drivers had an accident or something. I was really happy, but it was unexpected again. I think the word for today is unexpected.
Oh, indeed, I would agree with you on that. But taking 2 wins from today, next week we go to your home circuit of Le Mans. How are you feeling for the 24-hour circuit?
Home sweet home. Bienvenue en France. So, of course, I like this track. I think everyone in France love it. I know it, comparing to Indianapolis. So it might be good. But I was listening to Chris before, and I agree with him. It's going to be fuel saving strategy race. So qualifying will be still important, but 2 hours race will be most important at the qualifying. So everything's gonna be hard, and I really struggled staying in my chair for 2 hours. I was driving in VR at the beginning of the league actually, and I changed it to come back to my triple screens because staying focused for 2 hours with VR was too hard for me.
Oh, goodness me. Well, making the switch there, and it seems to have worked out in your favour. And whilst we look forward to how you get on next week, just before we do let you go, is there anybody you would like to say thank you to or give a shout out to on the broadcast?
Well, this is my first interview in this league, and I would like to thank all the different administrators of this league. I'm really happy to be part of it. I joined the league at the end of last year, and I am quite always surprised that I'm part of a league like that, streaming in YouTube, Twitch, and so on, with commentary like you do, Paul. Thank you for that. It makes me really appreciate my races. Wanted to watch it back when it's over. So thank you all. Thank you for your commentary. Keep doing like this, and I will keep doing my races with really motivation.
Oh, that's brilliant to hear, Jordan, and we love having you racing with us. And indeed, thank you for joining me in the interview room this evening. Your English is very good, I must say. And well, congratulations on your racing today, and we look forward to seeing you in a week's time.
Thank you. Bye.
All the best. So hearing there from Jordan Bebois, our GT3 bronze double winner for today. The privateer absolutely on form. A sprint race that worked out very well despite his inexperience at Indianapolis. And as he said himself, in the end, finding that lap time to take pole position in the class. And well, not by a huge margin, but a couple attempts in the end over Sean Scooter with that 25.587. And it worked out nicely in the sprint. But in the feature, an early mistake cost him dear. And it was all about going into recovery mode. But with everybody making mistakes in the GT3 bronze class at some point, and as we say, using the example, Sean Scooter ended up after that curb contact at turn 7, put him onto the roof. Well, we did see in there Bebois with the smallest of the major mistakes and bringing it home for the win in a master drive, and will head to his home circuit in a week's time. Can anybody stop the Flying Frenchman? I think he may have just found his ultimate form and now be looking to try and make it another win to start to put his hands back in control of this championship after falling out of the championship lead with the difficulties at Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps last week. But we'll have to wait and see whether he can make that a reality. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard from your 2 interviews for tonight. We started, of course, with Chris Staines, the #1 door number driver there in the LMDH Gold class for NXTGEN Racing Pink. And then we heard from the privateer just now in the number 64 Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo of Jordan Baybois in the GT3 bronze class. But 2 deserved winners in their classes today with a great pair of results, and we look forward to seeing how they get on in a week's time. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, that brings our post-round interviews to a conclusion. And it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and you want to know more about the NXTGEN racing community, perhaps you're sat there right now having your ears prick up because of the fact there was a mention from Chris Staines about our upcoming Clio Cup with the arrival of the Renault Clio machine coming to iRacing in the next few weeks as we're to understand it. Or perhaps you've been watching all the action today and you want to get on the grid in the near future for our GT3 League or our Proto GT3 League, or perhaps you're even thinking about any other leagues that we might have available. Well, if you do want to know more and potentially look at signing up, then why not head to our website firstly? That may be found at www.nextgenracing.co.uk. Alternatively, if you don't want to go to our website, you can always go to our official Facebook group. That may be found at www.facebook.com/groups/NextGen Racing. And either one you go to, you can ask all the administrators there for the latest information regarding the series, or if you just want to get to know the community a little bit more and everything we do, both on the virtual circuit and also on the real circuit. A number of our individuals, of course, working as part of the marshalling teams up and down the United Kingdom. But with that, ladies and gents, we now turn our attention to the flight to France for round number 7 in a week's time, for we'll be heading to the circuit des 24 Hours de Mans, or as we all know and love it as Le Mans, has celebrated its centenary this year of 24-hour racing, and we'll be celebrating the circuit on Wednesday the 8th of March 2023 as our drivers will take to it for the second of the 3 endurance race rounds of the season. It's going to be a 2-hour showdown in France. We'll see across all of our classes battles from start to finish in the lead for the championship, but the question is who can survive the task of the circuit and bring on home the win. Find out all that and more in a week's time, but until then, we have been NXTGEN Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Brit the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.